It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. And I did not think we'd be starting with hoops today, but here we go. We will be monitoring what Ron Rivera says at his press conference starting momentarily out in Ashburn. We will react to it and play the most important things for sure at 6 o'clock in our Pick 6 at 6. If he says anything crazy, obviously we'll break away from the basketball breaking news and give it to you. But the biggest story in sports right now, Anthony, is it still fresh enough that we can call it breaking news?
Yes, it is.
Breaking news!
Breaking news. Oh, snap, news is broken. Breaking news.
Damian Lillard has been traded, and it's not to the Miami Heat. Damian Lillard, in a 3-team trade, heads to the Milwaukee Bucks, where he will pair up with Giannis Antetokounmpo, also Thanasis. He's got his pick of it. Antetokounmpo, so Giannis seems like the most important one. Drew Holiday headed out in return. He goes to Portland, and it's a 3-team deal involving the Phoenix Suns. DeAndre Ayton and some other assets going to Portland. To Phoenix go Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic from the Blazers, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson as well. The draft capital here, 2028, 2030 pick swaps between Milwaukee and Portland, if obviously the better pick is available from the Bucks. And then in 2029, no matter what, unprotected first-round pick from Milwaukee to Portland. So that is the way the trade looks. By the way, if you're streaming along on YouTube or you would like to see that in visual form, pull up YouTube real quick because I made a graphic and everything, Anthony. Very, very fancy. It's actually not that fancy, but it is very helpful to have the visual because there's a lot of moving pieces here. And the obvious first thing to talk about is like Dame to Milwaukee. I think it fundamentally changes who they are as a basketball team in a very interesting way. They have chosen to sacrifice the thing that makes them the absolute best. And to be clear, they're very good on both sides of the ball. But they were super elite on the defensive side of the ball. And that was because they had Giannis, who is, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, somewhere in there. Best defender on the planet. Like, he's incredible. He guards multiple positions. He blocks shots. He gets steals. He gets deflections. He can guard 1 through 5. Like, he's a menace defensively. And Drew Holiday, who, for my money, is the best perimeter defender on earth and has been for a decade. And I kind of think it's ridiculous that he doesn't have more Defensive Player of the Year awards because there are few players I've ever seen play the sport who can just lock someone down the way Drew Holiday can make their life a living hell. Can he still do that at that level with consistency? And can he do it over the course of 82 games and a playoff run? I think that's probably the question in some level Milwaukee was asking themselves. But where Milwaukee really struggled, the one area that Drew bailed them out of at times, and Giannis has been able to bail them out of at times, and Chris Middleton has been able to bail them out of at times, is in the fourth quarter of a tight playoff game when the game gets bogged down. Do you have someone that can create a shot for you reliably? They do now. His name is Damian Lillard. And they are sacrificing in a major way defensively without Drew there to do this. They also sacrifice a real depth. Like, Grayson Allen's an important piece for them. He started a bunch of games, but at his best, he's probably a sixth man coming off the bench, obviously with Middleton coming back. They could play, 3-guard lineups, etc. But, like, that piece matters to them and their depth, and they're willing to do what I think you have to do when you're on a tight championship window, and I'll give you more background on why it's a tight championship window in a second. You have to make sacrifices and hope that it works out to better your ceiling, because I don't think Milwaukee is looking at this as we're trying to build a contender for a decade anymore. They're looking at Giannis's contract situation and recent comments made by their superstar that have basically said, look, if I don't feel like we're on a path to a championship, if I don't feel like this front office is doing the things they need to do to be a champion, then I'm going to be out of here when my contract is up. And that contract is up. I don't know if it's this season, next season. I think it's 2 years from now. Giannis contract. That's something I should have double-checked before the show. I apologize. Typey, clicky, clicky. Why did I just say that into a microphone? Jesus Christ. Yeah, he's up after next year. He's got a player option in 25-26. It's $51 million, and he's probably going to be able to opt out of that and sign for more. So that's a nice place to be in life, where you have $51 million. That's your choice to either accept or be like, no, please give me more. It's not a place I am right now. Yet. Need to grow a lot. Become a better shooter. Reverse age.
Keep that hope alive, Craig.
Or come up with something completely away from sports that is worth a lot of money.
Yes.
$51 million player option. Can you imagine having the opportunity to turn down $51 million? Because they're going to give you more?
I can only imagine.
Must be nice.
Yep.
Must be nice to have Dame, too.
It's really nice to have Dame.
I mean, Dame last year, if he had stayed healthy throughout the entire year, would have been a first-team All-NBA player.
Yeah, no question.
He's still that good. And I think that this takes an offensive load off of Giannis. I think Giannis can coast a little bit more in the regular season because the burden is not going to be as high. Obviously, Dame, this is the best player that Dame will have played with by a mile, with all due respect to CJ McCollum and, Carmelo and all these dudes that have gone through Portland over the years. Like, he is far and away the best player, because Giannis might be the best player on the planet. Obviously, it's pretty silly to say anyone but Jokic after what he did in the postseason last year, but Giannis is that good. And we are just a couple years away removed from anyone questioning Giannis being the best player on the planet, feeling very silly because he clinched the finals with a 50-point triple-double. That's who that dude is. And so in a couple of years, we are going to see if this is ultimately enough, because Dame, while he's still great, he's older. He's in his mid-30s. He ain't going to play forever. He's a younger, smaller guard. If his athleticism takes another hit, even a half step at his size, that's going to hurt. It isn't riskless. The defensive side of the ball is definitely a question there now. Who is going to be their on-ball defender? If I were them, I would call the Wizards about DeLon Wright, and I would do that today. I don't know what they have to offer anymore, but I would do that if I were them. But it's a pretty fascinating trade. It's a big swing by Milwaukee. And the other thing that we'll explore more next is it prevents him from going to Miami, who is perhaps their biggest competition. And so there is an addition by subtraction element where they subtract Dame from Miami, and now he's playing for them in Milwaukee. So that's the trade. We will discuss what it means for the Eastern Conference as a whole. Nevertheless, by the way, the Suns in this trade as well bolster their roster. What does it mean for the Western Conference? So we will take a look at the NBA landscape after a seismic shift. Damian Lillard headed to Milwaukee. We'll talk about it more next on The Hoffman Show. How are you, and are you using the headphones that I sent you?
I am using the headphones that you sent me, so I'll not be pulled over. And I got to tell you, man, seeing the craziness coming out of Chicago today with the Justin Fields comment, with the DC abruptly resigning, it's just giving me flashbacks to what this team used to be like. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking about football in a stadium? That feels odd.
Right. One, God, this call quality is just exceptional. So just, I got to say, I'm going to send you a clip later just so you can hear how clear you are. Two, we actually, so earlier in the show, we did a segment called This, That, and the Other Thing, and we wound up putting the Bears stuff in that. And yeah, it felt very oddly familiar, but also safely distant, which I think is good. All right, we got a lot to get to and not a lot of time. So first, let's... Yes.
James Smith-Williams just pulled up and honked at me. I'm on the radio with Craig Hoffman right now. Do you want to say something?
What's up, James?
How you doing, man?
What's up, James? Although you probably can't hear it because this is just in Sam's headphones.
Quick. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Feeling good. Just talking to Sam. Last time we did a hit with Sam, he put Matt Paris and Ben Standing on, so this is an upgrade.
Way better. Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
Definitely an upgrade.
All right, let's make sure nobody gets in trouble here. All right, James, drive home safely.
Thank you. You have a good one.
All right, goodbye. James Smith-Williams, everybody. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hoops heads, it's that time of year where basketball training camp is about to be underway. It means we get big trades like the Damian Lillard trade today. It also means that Media Day is around the corner. Do not miss a special digital-only event from your boys at the Hoffman Show. Coming up on Monday, Wizards Media Day, noon to 2, live coverage on the Team 980's YouTube page. Also be on 106.7 The Fan, so we'll simulcast on both stations' YouTube page. That is online only, digital only. We'll have interviews with Kyle Kuzma, Wes Unseld Jr., Corey Kisper, Denny Avia, Tyus Jones. So that is all Monday, noon to 2, streaming live on YouTube. And then as we get closer to the season, we'll play back some of those interviews for you here on the radio. As for the big NBA news of the day, how does it affect the Eastern Conference? The blockbuster trade between the Blazers, Bucks, and Suns that sends Damian Lillard to Portland. I think it's important to say that this is still a work in progress and trying to figure out how this totally affects the Eastern Conference, Anthony, because there's a chance that Jrue Holiday comes back this way. Like, Jrue, I was kind of chuckling because you played the Bruno song coming out of the break, and, you need a condo in Manhattan. Jrue is not going to get a condo in Portland. I don't think he's going to get a condo in Manhattan either. But could he need one back where he started in Philadelphia? That's a report that started to emerge.
Ooh, okay.
A condo in Miami, maybe the one that Dame Lillard was looking at. That could definitely be on the table. So there is, I think, a really good chance that the Eastern Conference heats up even more because I don't think Jrue Holiday he's definitely not staying in Portland. So it's kind of hard to grade this trade overall right now. But does that unlock the Harden deal somehow? Does Portland, Philly, LA Clippers, is that a 3-team deal that can somehow get worked? If not, I don't know what Portland's kind of in the same spot they were with Dame. Maybe they want less in return for Jrue, and maybe that makes it feasible for Philly to do a 2-team deal. But Miami certainly, Portland knows what Miami was offering, and they might not have been willing to give it up for Lillard. But now that they've got all this other stuff for Lillard, will they do it for Holiday? So it's hard to really understand exactly how the Eastern Conference is going to shake out because I think Jrue is going to wind up heading back this way. But I definitely think it's fair for us to look at it right now and see where things stand, how it stacks up.
Yeah, I definitely think Miami's an interesting destination, primarily because they didn't get Dame. They lost out on Gabe Vincent and Max Strus,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have Tyler Hero who wants money, but management isn't necessarily ready to pull the plug. And
Right.
then there's this window that you have for Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler, who are sort of kind of getting old, but Jimmy's got a little bit more time, but Kyle Lowry looks like he's winding down a little bit. So I think that's an interesting destination just because they need reinforcements. They are the
They
definitive
do.
champs from the Eastern Conference, and it doesn't look like they've had all that good of an offseason.
Dude, if Miami gets Drew, they are going to be such a bore to play in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine? You got Bam on the back line with Jimmy and Drew
Yep.
guarding your perimeter players. Good night.
And the thing is, like, Drew has been able to unlock, his offensive side to his game, as of late. You mentioned it last segment about Drew, bailing him out in situations. He can still score. So I
Did he
think,
have 50 in a game last year?
I'm not sure with 50, but he's had some big games for the Bucks for sure. I don't think that's a bad, duo of him and Jimmy Butler. Granted, they're going to need a little bit more, but for starters, I would definitely, go with that.
He did. March 29th, end of the regular season last year. He had 51 against Indianapolis. So, yeah. So here. I think people forget Milwaukee was the best team in the East last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were the 1 seed, and then they had that funky playoff series where Giannis gets hurt early, and it's just bad news bears all around, and ultimately they lose. So Milwaukee, though, I think would have to be I think they're the favorite. I still think Giannis is the best player in the conference. He and Embiid are real close. It's not some massive difference. And if you want to tell me I'm wrong, I thought Joel should have won the MVP last year. If I got to pick one for the long term, I'm picking Giannis. But if I get the second pick and wind up with JoJo, I'm fine. By the way, it's also worth mentioning that not involved in any of this because they already made their moves is the Boston Celtics. And if you tell me I get the third pick and I get Jason Tatum, I'm still pretty psyched as well. So the East is just freaking loaded. I would handicap it this way.
I think they're top-heavy loaded.
I think there's depth in the conference, too, to be honest, man.
Compared to the West?
Not compared to the West, but it's
Okay.
not like it's 1, 2, 3, and then you're done. Cleveland and New York are good teams. They're not championship good.
Yeah,
but you mess around in a playoff series against them, you're gonna you could get got.
But I just feel as though that's how the West is. The West has a lot of legitimate contenders, and the West primarily got those 3, maybe 4, whatever, depending on whatever the Heat do. I don't know.
So here's the teams that I think can win the conference. Milwaukee for sure. Boston for sure. Philly can as constructed. If Harden is not, who knows what James Harden's going to do? Let's be frank. But especially if they were to get Drew somehow.
Yeah.
Philly for sure. I think Cleveland's good enough to win the conference. I would not put them I put them in a second tier,
Yeah.
but Cleveland is young and good and getting better. If guys like Evan Mobley take the next step, all of a sudden you're talking about him, you're talking about Garland, you're talking about Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell.
He's the guy that has to, come up huge for those guys.
He does, and he wasn't as good in some spots last year as he's been previously in Utah. But I think with those defensive guys, they're so young, if they take the next step, I think Cleveland's dangerous. I think New York is probably in the same tier as Cleveland and maybe a little bit below them.
Yep.
But I'm done doubting Jalen Brunson. That kid is ridiculous. And they made a couple of nice moves in the offseason. I think that Miami is obviously capable of winning the conference. And I think that's probably it. But Chicago could be feisty, just as a pain in the butt.
Yep.
Atlanta can certainly be a pain in the butt, and if they are able to make a midseason move and add someone, who knows who the next star is that wants out, it's Trae Young, able to pull them somewhere. They were in the conference finals not that long ago. If Scotty Barnes can re-rack his career and get back on the right track, Toronto's an interesting team. Indiana is going to be feisty night to night. Washington's a total wild card. I have no idea what they're going to be, but they're going to be fun to watch, and they're going to score a bunch of points. Orlando, like second half of the year last year, they're on to something. How much can Banchero and Wagner and other Wagner, how much can those guys grow? And then Charlotte is terrible, and Detroit should be better than they were as the league worst team last year, but is not good. The West has so many teams, like you said, but I do think this affects Phoenix in a very positive way.
Yeah.
Like, Phoenix was a team that I was concerned about their depth, obviously, when they made the Durant, Beal, moves. I think that they obviously did a good job in free agency getting the league minimums and the kind of stuff that you do when you're a team that's got that kind of talent. But, like, they picked up some specific skills that I think are very intriguing and make me feel a lot better about their bench. Like, Grayson Allen is a big pickup for them.
Yep.
A guy who can handle the ball, get the ball in the hands of others, take some of the ball handling duties off of Beal and Booker, can play a little point, but is a very, very good spot-up shooter and is a pretty solid defender, and can guard point guards. Like, you can take that responsibility off of Beal and Booker night to night so that they're not wasting their energy guarding the Steph Currys, etc. Yusuf Nurkic is extremely useful for them, specifically in the Denver matchup, because you need someone to bang with Jokic. And while no one's good at guarding Jokic, like, Nurkic is at least big enough that he's not just going to get bullied.
Yep.
And that's something that DeAndre Ayton was not.
Yep.
So that to me, specific to this team, is an upgrade. Ayton's the better player, obviously. But if Nurkic is, 90% of what he used to be, that's a big thing for them. Nasir Little's a nice player. I don't know much about Keon Johnson, if I'm being honest. But those are the other guys that are in the play. But, like, Little is going to be a very good fit with them. He's super athletic, can get out on the wing and run with all those dudes. So, should be interesting. Clint Yates, I'm sure, has thoughts on all of this, the Damian Lillard trade. We will check in with him for his Wednesday visit next here on The Hoffman Show.
Frank,
What do they teach you at Georgetown Prep? Icarus, the guy who flies too close to the sun. What do they teach you at Georgetown? Anthony, I think you just put your job at risk at Georgetown Prep.
Why?
There's no way that they did not teach you the story of Icarus at Georgetown Prep.
We actually did a lot of Greek mythology, though. We didn't talk about Icarus flying too close to the sun.
Yes, you did. You don't remember it. I feel very confident. Who can we call
It's okay.
at Prep
I'm
to
ask
confirm
my kids
this?
I mean, I will just do that right now, actually.
Okay. I would like you to ask someone of authority. Do we teach about Icarus?
2 hours later.
Did we ever check in on that, Anthony?
Yeah, my classmates actually texted me and said, yeah, we've done it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to figure out where you were on that day of class at a later date.
You're right.
Last night, Aryna Sabalenka makes the U.S. Open final, the Belarusian player, and here's how it sounded on Belarusian television.
Арина Сабаленко! Ваму, 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 ваму! Что Арина недостойна звания первой ракетки мира.
Yeah.
Получите! Распишитесь!
Oh, yeah.
Rising up! Back on the street! Did my time, took my chances! When the distance, now I'm back on my feet. Just a man and his will to survive. So many times it happens too fast.
Oh, keep
You
going.
change your passion for glory. It's the Eye of the tiger is the thrill of the night, rising up to the challenge of a rival. And they lost, no survival, chose the Все, ребята, я сдулся.
10 out of 10. No notes. If you hear Paramore and it's a Wednesday, it means it's time to talk to Clinton Yates, of course, ESPN commentator. You can catch him later today on Around the Horn. You can also read his work at Anscape. Quickly, before we welcome Clinton in, tell you that Marty Smith, someone Clinton knows well, will be joining us coming up at 6:30 today. He wrote a book. I talked to him about it. It was very interesting, and we're going to play it for you at 6:30. Also, take command, some insight on the Commanders from the film room and Logan Paulson coming up at 5 o'clock. We welcome in Yates now, though. Sir, the proper welcome. What's up?
What's up, man? You have no idea what's going on in my life right now. So the news drops about Dame. I'm sitting in the TV chair, getting the Woj bomb. We're deciding what we're going to do with the show. Guess who walks through the door of the studio I'm in? Oh, that would be Woj because he needs to go on SportsCenter. And I was like, I'm kind of already here. And he just sort of goes, okay, I guess I'll go to the next one. And now I'm running between here and the radio studio trying to figure out how I'm going to interview him for my podcast later. There's a lot happening right now, Gregory.
Oh, yeah, because you got ESPN Daily this week, yeah?
Yes, we got a lot going on. So it's all good. You know what I mean? It's just, the regulars of the business for all of those of you want to know how you make the hot dogs.
Yeah, so honestly, we'll get the Dame take from you, the sports side in a second, but I think this is actually interesting for people because you are right there in the middle of it, at ESPN LA where NBA Today and all that stuff is happening. You are on ESPN Daily. So a major news day like this at ESPN. You're also on Around the Horn, which is, people know, is like a show you guys tape earlier in the day, then it airs at 5 o'clock. So there's moving pieces there. What is it like at a place like ESPN on a day like this where a story that you've been waiting on finally breaks?
A lot of people on phones, a lot of people talking on phones with their faces and using separate phones with their fingers in their hands. A lot of tearing up with scripts and a lot of just deciding on the fly what the most important thing is. So that's what happened today. We obviously, when that news drops, it moves to A1. For those of you who don't know how rundowns work, that's what it is. Same as a newspaper. And kind of scrapped everything we had at the top and decided to go with that. And on top of that, we had a surprise party for somebody who's retiring at the station today. So there's all sorts of humans here. What a day.
That's a day. All right, let's get to some sports takes out of you and then let you go with your busy day. Dame to Milwaukee kind of comes out of nowhere. We all thought, Miami was certainly a possibility, but it's been floating. When you see the deal from the Milwaukee side of it and the Dame side of it, we can talk about Phoenix in a second. Milwaukee and Dame, what do you think of the fit?
I think it's an improvement for Milwaukee in one sense, in that you've got somebody that nobody can sit around and argue that you haven't made the move to try to keep Giannis. That was always kind of dangling out there. Giannis making references to who he is and who he's not in terms of a rostered teammate. If you've got Dame, there's no reason that you can't. There's no reason you can't say. There we go. There's no reason you can't say that was my cheek pressing the mute button.
Oh,
there's
fun.
No reason
Good times.
You can't say. I want to keep him here. And so I think for the Bucks, it makes you feel better. From a talent standpoint, yes, you improve. You get a far more offensive player at point guard, but the defense isn't necessarily the same as it is for a guy like Holiday, but your big three improves a lot. And I hate to say this, but Grayson Allen Grayson was the kind of a player that, even though he's a bit of a jerk, the kind of dude you want on your squad in terms of the fight or whatever you want to call it that he gives. Guy turned into a little bit of a player. I don't know that the Bucks get 10 times better, but I do think that they get better than what they were. I still think, though, that there are a couple other duos that you could say are better than Giannis and Dame at this point in the NBA.
Yeah, no, that we see this very, very similarly, where I think the ceiling for Milwaukee is higher, but the margin for error also shrinks because you lose the depth, you lose some of the defensive consistency, you lose all that stuff. I guess the even bigger question, like if you want to go even more macro than like looking at the Eastern Conference standings and figuring out how they're going to shake out, is this actually enough, a mid-30s Dame Lillard, to keep Giannis long term and like get him actually interested in signing an extension? Or is this just like the best they can do and you hope that it works out and then there's good feelings and he signs an extension?
That's the whole question. I think your best case scenario for that actually working out for Giannis to stay is the fact that they like each other as human beings. When asked independently and separately over the course of this offseason who they wanted to play with, both of them have named the other. And that, to me, in today's NBA, it has to matter on some level. And maybe the production isn't necessarily what you assume it's going to be walking into it year one with, a trade a week before training camp. But if they get along, which, again, hello Brooklyn, hello Philly, is not a given. You know what I mean? In the NBA is half the battle. So that's what I'm going to be looking for as much as I'm going to be looking at wins and losses early in the season for Milwaukee, is just what is the on-court chemistry like and what is the off-court chemistry like, because that's the name of the game in the NBA these days.
Clinton Yates, ESPN, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we were talking about Giannis's contract earlier. Has a player option for $51 million in a couple years, which is a player option I would like to have. I'd like to have Dame's more. In 25-26, he'll be making $58 million, then a player option in his age 36 season in 2026-27 for $63 million. Clinton?
Wow. Like, it's just those numbers are so astronomical. Like, if I was one of those guys that played in the league in the 90s and I looked at my skill set and then I looked at what these guys who were also Rands make, I don't know, it would make me sick. I'd have to move to another country just to remind people, just to not remind myself that I was born 30 years too early or whatever. It's amazing what these numbers are just because people want to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely nuts. Okay, so you mentioned the Grayson Allen part of this. I think Phoenix does phenomenally well in this trade to get Allen, to get Nurkic. They unload Ayton, who was a malcontent for them. That's not me commenting on Ayton as a person. I don't know him at all, but like he was not happy in Phoenix. So what do you make of this from the Western Conference side of it, which probably means talking about Phoenix, not so much about Portland?
Yeah, it's more so about Phoenix. I mean, he wasn't happy from a basketball standpoint, but I love Monty Williams, but that was always, to me, a major concern. How did that fall apart? How did that happen? He was vital in their finals run. Of course, they were a different team from a roster makeup standpoint, but he plays more than Nurkic. Nurkic doesn't necessarily get on the court that much, and that's something that I think is a real thing here, is the reliability element. I don't love the fact that this ended with Ayton getting traded out of town. I get why, but I still feel bad because he was a part of the reason why anybody started caring about that team again to begin with. I understand that Devin Booker's there. I understand that everything else has happened. It's just kind of a rough go for a kid who I thought really just had a personality difference with a good coach, and for whatever reason it all fell to crap. And that's unfortunate. I'm not saying that he's in a wasteland right now, but that's about the second closest thing to it if you're talking about places other than the city you're in right now, Craig.
The Wizards are going to be fun this year. Don't hate on the Wizards. I'm not telling you they're going to be good, but they're going to be fun.
Are they making the playoffs?
They could mess around and make the play in, I think.
Sure. I've been saying that to myself and my friends for 20 years, but that's okay. I'm just saying, my point is that I don't think Ayton is going to become an irrelevant player in the NBA. I'm just kind of bummed that the situation that they were in when you had seen some level of success didn't manage to grow or develop, and now he's just gone and they've tried something new.
Yeah, well, they're certainly trying something new in Phoenix. The other part of this is Holiday, who probably wakes up today going, "What?" And now he's in limbo. He's going to wind up somewhere else besides Portland. A lot of buzz about Miami, a lot of buzz about Philadelphia. Either of those or any other destination that is particularly intriguing to you?
I like the Philadelphia idea, especially if the Harden situation is going to turn into a bigger debacle than it already is. I've always liked Holiday. I think he's a great player. He's a great story as a human being and as an athlete as well. I just think from a basketball standpoint, the Philly fit makes a lot of sense to me. And also, this is arguably, I don't want to say the more intriguing part of this, but we were all waiting for what the news was going to be on where Dame was going to drop. What the other pieces were, we didn't know. Holiday's an extremely important player wherever he's going to be. I'm as fascinated by this, quite frankly, as I was by where Dame was going to go, because I didn't even think of that many options in terms of where he would be. So what he's managed to do like I said, Holiday, from a defensive standpoint, he just brings you so much. I think there's a lot of teams in the NBA that could really use him.
No doubt. Hey, you want a guy who can score 50 and is maybe the best perimeter defender in the league? Yeah, I do.
Right.
I do think that that's probably a useful player, to say the least. The question is, how much longer can he sustain that level? And obviously, what do the other teams have in return? So a big TBD on that. You, sir, have radio to do and other things to do and a podcast with Woj to do. Look forward to that. Clinton Yates, watch him on Around the Horn later, and then listen to ESPN Daily for him and more with Woj tomorrow on this Dame Lillard trade. Thank you kindly, sir, for your time on a very busy day, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Playoff Washington Wizards, baby. You said it first, Gregory. I'm holding you to that.
And there's a new hashtag, too, but we can talk about that later. You have work to do. All right, goodbye.
I don't need to know that. Bye.
All right, goodbye. Anthony, the new hashtag is out. Instead of DC above all this year, it's for the district.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Playoff Wizards for the district.
You're speaking it into existence?
Hey, look, does the play-in count as playoffs?
No.
You got to win the play-in to be in the playoffs. I agree with that.
Yes.
I don't know they're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be better than people think.
Okay. I think so, too.
Unless they, blow it up mid-year because they're able to sell it off for parts, and it's like, oh, sweet. Yeah, no, so you want to give us 2 first-round picks for player X? Done. Sweet. We'll take your first-round picks, you big dummies. If that stuff happens, then, yeah, they're probably, they'll be better than you think, but I wouldn't go betting on them because I have no idea what the total will be by the end of the year. The roster they have now is not the roster they're going to have at the end of the year. But this roster is fun as hell.
Yeah.
Dude, Poole and
Put up some points.
Poole and Kuz together, I'm telling you, that's going to be a show. We're
going to have some viral moments.
I am more excited to go to games this year and watch those two play basketball than I have been, for me, since John left, and got hurt, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even the Russ year, which we couldn't go because it was COVID and there wasn't actually fans in the stands for most of that. But I wasn't as interested in actually going to the games. I want to be in the building when Jordan Poole crosses people. It's going to be frustrating to be there when he also olays a couple of defensive possessions, but that's where we're at in this point in his career. Hopefully there's less olays and more oh my's. I'm going to give that one to Dave. It's a good line.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something I got to ask.
Uh-oh.
Remind me on Monday. Because I didn't get a chance to ask this past Monday when we did a thing at ESA.
Mm-hmm.
We got to find out what the song is this year.
Oh.
What's the theme song? Last year they did the remix of Let Me Clear My Throat.
Yeah.
Actually, just after what's trending, remind me to send an email. Right. I gotta figure that out. Because we got to get working on Dave Johnson's intro.
Yes, sir.
It's coming. I'm pumped. We're also going to talk some football today. Obviously, we want a better insight on what's happening with the Commanders in terms of watching the tape, what actually went wrong on the field. We will get to it at 5 o'clock in Take Command Wednesday. Then 5:30, never read the comments. Pick 6 at 6, the best of Ron Rivera and Sam Howell at the podium today. And then ESPN's Marty Smith at 6:30. All still to come, but first a look at what is trending. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will get you a little bit of Take Command, the podcast, of course, that I do with Logan Paulson. The Wednesday show is our tape review show. So, what happened with the Commanders along the offensive line? We will get your answers coming up at the top of the hour. If you want more on Chase Young's performance, you want more on some Sam Howell, you want more on some of the receivers, I would definitely suggest you checking out the podcast in full. It's really, really interesting stuff. Logan and I sit down. What's cool about the Tuesday pod, Anthony, is, like, obviously, I'm at the mercy. Like, I'll just be fully transparent. I don't get a chance to watch the full tape, basically, at all anymore, like the full tape, because by the time NFL.com puts it up, like, we're already way deep in the week. NFL Game Pass is, anyone who knows it's a nightmare. But what I get to do is I get to read and consume a lot of the clips, thanks to guys like Mark Bullock, who do a great job of posting and writing about it. A lot of different of the writers, Nikki, Sam, John, like, they've all got things through their places of work, or they've got to connect somewhere. Somehow they get the film. And so I wound up getting to watch a lot of it. And I obviously go back and watch the TV copy back at least one other time. But what's cool about something like what we did on Tuesday is, okay, hey, we're going to go through all the sacks, and pretty much I can find any key play that we need to talk about on film, even if I can't find it on Game Pass, because the NFL hasn't actually posted the film yet, or somewhere where I can get it. And so we literally sat for a half hour before the podcast, and we went through every snap or every sack on the all 22. And so, obviously most of it's Logan being like, all right, this is what I see here and here. But then I can be like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? And sometimes we wind up getting an idea exchange. It's like, oh, well, I guess that's true. Or, oh, I didn't see that the first time. Let's rewind that back. Oh, yeah, let's double check that. And so it's kind of cool because we wind up watching about a half hour of film before we record the pod. Then we record it, obviously, and everyone gets to hear the results. So a little behind the scenes,
It's always good sometimes to peel the curtain back. Yes, sir.
I peeked to the wrong side. The microphone was on the other side of my hands. You got to peek to the curtain over here. You can't peek over here because then the mic doesn't pick it up. And this is, after all, what, Anthony? A radio show.
Yes.
A radio show. Microphones. Very important. All right. It is time. Anthony's playing hide and go seek over there. It is time for this, that, and the other thing before we get to that film breakdown. So there's a couple of loose odds and ends throughout the world of sports that we wanted to hit on. Obviously, we spent the first hour, much of it, talking about the biggest story of the day, which is the much-awaited, much-anticipated Dame Lillard trade. As for actual basketball being played right now, a big win last night for the New York Liberty to tie the series, split ultimately at home with the Connecticut Sun. It comes on a day where Breanna Stewart is named the WNBA's MVP, and then doesn't really have that great of a game. Certainly offensively, Stewie just 3 of 13 from the field, but does have 11 boards, 5 assists to go with 11 points, 5 blocks as well. It does show her value that she just is so much more than a scorer. Sabrina Ionescu leads the way. Despite going 1 of 6 from 3, she goes 10 of 10 from the free throw line, and Stewie plays a big role in limiting Alyssa Thomas, who finished second in the MVP, to just 2 of 13 shooting. Did have 9 assists, a triple-double machine, 8 boards, but just 10 points for Alyssa Thomas. So ultimately, New York gets the win. These two teams look like they very much might beat each other up, while on the other side of the bracket, Vegas is just destroying Dallas. Clearly the better team, clearly not on the same level. Ultimately, Dallas does make this one closer in the fourth quarter, but a 7-point win for the Aces, and on a day where she somehow finishes third in the MVP voting, despite being the best and most dominant player on the best team in the league. A'ja Wilson reminds everybody what she's about. 30 points, 11 boards. Also goes 10 of 10 from the free throw line. Let's go with Chelsea Grace, 23 points and 8 assists. Kelsey Plum, 18 and 3. Jackie Young, 13, 9 and 4. Like, they're a behemoth, dude. And I still think that even though Connecticut and New York can compete with them, like, I still think Vegas, even without Candace Parker, is definitely the favorite to win the title. And I think it's kind of ridiculous that A'ja Wilson's not the MVP. The other two players are fantastic, had amazing seasons, but like what A'ja did this year was nuts. And it mattered to the fact, like, in a major way, that they were the best team in the league.
Yeah, I think they made it a point in the broadcast yesterday when I was watching the Liberty and the Sun that, A'ja Wilson sometimes didn't have to play fourth quarters just because of how dominant the Aces were. So I think they put up a stat, like the equivalent of time that she didn't have to play was like 3.5 games compared to Alyssa Thomas and Breanna Stewart, who were required of their teams to, go out there and play all those minutes. So, I mean, I was just as shocked, but if I had to, bring it down to just two players, I don't know, AT and Stewart would probably be the people I lean on too. I don't know. It's tough.
So
it was a very close race.
It was the closest. It was the closest in league history. But if you want to look at that, like, take that into account, and the minutes played argument, like, it's not like A'ja shouldn't be punished because they were so good that they crushed other people.
Yeah.
And that she didn't have to play. So, okay, if only there was a way to do this. Oh, wait, there is. Per 36-minute numbers. Or you want per 36 minutes or per 100 possessions?
Let's go per 100.
Okay, so you want per 100 possessions. The leading scorer in the WNBA was A'ja Wilson. She averaged 35.6 points per 100 possessions. The plus-minus numbers, A'ja was 6th in the league. Candace Parker, 2nd. You had a player from Atlanta, and then actually, in very small sample size, Shea Terp, Abby Myers from the Mystics actually finished 3rd. But, like, of regular players, if I were to sort this, of players who, like, played more than 20 games, it's the Aces starting lineup is, like, the best plus-minus in the league. That's it. Let's see. Rebounds. Who's got the best per 100 minutes? Let's see. Of players who actually played, Tierra McCowan, Jonquil Jones, Alyssa Smith, A'ja Wilson, it comes in, like, 10th. She only played 12 games, so let's say she comes in 8th. Shakira Austin played less than 20 games. She was in 9th, so really, she's like 7th in the league in rebounding. So, like, if you just go by the numbers and you dole it out over like an even number of possessions or an even number of minutes, and you don't just do, like, per game or totals, then yeah, all these, like, were Stewie and AT amazing? Yeah. But A'ja was better, and her team won more. What the hell more do you want except for her to play games when East Coast people are awake?
I mean, this my only, like, counter argument. I would just talk about their value to the team. Without AT, the Sun would not be good. I think if the Aces did not have A'ja Wilson, I think they would still, do well.
They'd be good.
They'd
but,
be
like,
a solid team.
They would not be.
They wouldn't be probably the favorite to win it. But I'm talking about the Sun would. There would be an afterthought. Like, you wouldn't think much of them, to be honest. Yes, they still have DeWanna Bonner. They still have Tiffany Hayes, but they go as AT goes. And the Liberty, I think they're deep, but I think the most valuable of the three is AT, just because of, she's not on a super team. Like, everything is revolved around her. It's sort of like when Russ won, MVP when he was with the Thunder. He was the only player on the team, and guess what? If Russ ain't played, they were going to be terrible. They were going to be terrible.
I think punishing players because their teammates are good is stupid. It's one of my least favorite.
That's fair.
It's one of my least favorite arguments. Like, if it's close, sure. But, like, she's the leading scorer. She's got more points, more rebounds than the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Stewie's third in scoring, and AT is... Where does she go? Do I have to, or did I scroll past her? Or do I got to keep scrolling per 36 minutes?
You might have to keep scrolling.
No, it's a keep scrolling situation.
Yeah.
Which again, like, there's more to the game than scoring, but she's the best in the league as a scorer. Asia is. Like, she had a record-setting year. It's just when you look back at
your point.
When you look back at the season, and I realize it's regular season versus
playoff
postseason, but like, we do this in the NBA, we do this in other sports.
Yep.
It's like, who's the story of the season? Stewie also had a great one.
Yep.
But like, the story of the season, this is like a fundamental conversation of what MVP is about, is Asia Wilson and what the Aces did. And she didn't win the MVP, and that's stupid. Don't disrespect the other two. They had phenomenal seasons. All three of them should be unanimous first team all league.
Yeah.
But Asia should have the MVP. And she's going to go kill them in the finals.
Ooh, I'm going with the Liberty.
Oh, it's on. It's a show war now. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.
I know I was going to get you.
Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I'm going to get AC on the phone and get my jersey stat sent out here. Okay, it's on. Coming up next, take command. Dive into the X's and O's. What went wrong with the Commanders on Sunday?
They showed us, hey, man, like, when you're running with the big dogs, you got to do things at a different level. So,
yeah, no, I that's where I take out of it is like, okay, this defensive line, do I think they're all of a sudden are not very good? No, but like, you're going to face a truly elite offense and play like this. That's not good enough to be elite. Like, that's the measuring stick, right? Like, if you thought you were, I guess I would put it this way for the D-line specifically. Yeah. If you thought you already made it, not quite. Yeah. Not that you're not capable of better, not that you're not capable of more, but like, this is elite. And so if you want to dominate against that group, you got to be better.
And also, I think the other thing I'd like to point out there is game flow.
Yeah.
The game flow in this game is one where you're playing from behind, and I think you see the importance of an offense that can kind of push that game flow, to a higher level, right? When they're playing with a lead, the Commanders are playing with a lead, that defensive line can punch. Well, you see it in Arizona, you see it against the Broncos.
Yeah.
Thank you. So,
by the way, what a day for them.
Yeah, tough day for them. But what I am saying is that, like, that is where complementary football comes into play here. The defensive line cannot win you a Super Bowl by itself. The defense needs the secondary, the linebackers need the offense to be productive. And if the offense is productive, like we just discussed, this team's in a much better position. So I think those are the things that really stick out to me in terms of how I would measure this, and areas that I say, hey, they can improve in these areas, and they will improve in these areas, because, like we talked about, like, this is a very young football team that's in very important positions.
Yes. In summary, turnovers, bad. Explosive plays, good for you, bad for them. And you do need both sides of the ball, and they do interact with each other in a major way.
I mean, really, that's what this game comes down to.
And what game doesn't? Just you see the repercussions if they go badly. Games where, like, we have done a good job, I think, of joking on this podcast of how silly the turnover analysis is. right? Oh, turnovers. Yeah, good analysis, guy. Great key to the game.
Turnovers and explosives today.
And explosives, right. But today is a day that shows you why that is so important. Because when you turn the ball over as much as Washington did, even if you go back and watch the tape and be like, I don't know, the process at times was better than the scoreboard would appear, it just shows why you have no hope and you ultimately lose 37-3.
Yeah, and it's funny when we were doing the post game, it's like Beam Mitch was all up in arms about the defense playing poorly, and I was like, I don't think they actually played that bad, because I think it's 17 unanswered points, right? From 17 offensive points, or what I mean by that is like turnovers leading directly to scores, and like that's just like not a tenable solution. Kind of hold on and kind of prevent this really good offense from scoring, and then the offense throws a pick six, whatever. There was a bunch of plays in there, so I don't know. I think the defense, there's a lot of positive things to glean from this performance. Offensively, I think it's kind of in that vein that you're talking about, right? Like, you can't evaluate it clearly because the turnovers are weighted so heavily.
Right.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. That is Logan Paulsen. And it is time to review the tape. The scoreboard, I wouldn't say the scoreboard ever lies, because at the end of the day, Logan, that's the point of the game. But we know the film never lies. And I think after watching this game back, this game was far more competitive down in, down out. These teams perhaps closer in ability than it certainly the scoreboard looked. But at the same time, it just shows the importance, like we said in the post game, of the turnovers and the situational football and how these things, even if you're competitive down in and down out, you make the wrong mistake at the wrong time and you wind up on the wrong end of a really bad score.
Yeah, and I don't think we're saying that, like, the Commanders should have won, but it definitely should have been a more competitive appearance. And I do think the Bills are a really good football team. That defense is very good. The offense, obviously led by Josh Allen, is very good. That's what happens when you have a really competitive quarterback at the position. One of the best in the league. But I will say, like, I understand why fans are so upset. Like they had high expectations for this game, and I think this is one of the things when you're dealing with a young quarterback and a young staff, is like you're going to go through growing pains like this and learning experiences. And I think it's important that fans kind of remember that. Like, we're fans of the team also, so we were, kind of stunned into silence. But like, after our post game review, like the comments there are brutal, man. Fans are just so upset, and I get it, because like you think it's gonna be different, but
losing 37-3, not fun for anyone.
This team is the same team that beat Denver and that beat Arizona. It's the same team, like in terms of the talent, in terms of the production. Like, it's just, this is a really good Buffalo team, and again, like, this is really good analysis, but you don't take care of the football, and we're going to put some context with this in a second. And it's just, you can't win games like this against good teams. So I think it's important to remember, like, you still see some good stuff from Sam. You still see some good stuff from B-Rob. The playmakers are still who they are. The defense played well, and I know a lot of fans don't like to hear that, but if you look at the breakdown of the game and watch the film, that's true. So I think that's all stuff that we're going to kind of talk about more in depth. But like, just so you guys hear us, like, we understand that this is upsetting. We're going to try and add some context to it now.
Yeah. Not saying they should have won, not saying they played well overall. They just played better than a 37-3 scoreline. Right. But it also, again, underscores the importance of very key points to the game that have been emphasized by analysts for a long, long time. Yeah. Turnovers chief amongst them. The other thing that I think is important that I want to underscore is we talk about Sam being a young player. And you just said this is a young quarterback, young staff, young team. And we give Sam, I think, more people, I should say, give Sam grace because he's a young player. And it's like, oh, this is a learning process. But I think this is a reminder that this is a young team in general. Yeah. And you see whether it's Chase Young, who we'll talk about a little bit more, Sadiq Charles, like there's young players, Jahan Dotson. There's young players all over the field doing young guy stuff. And they happen to do a lot of young guy stuff in some bad spots this weekend or in a key play here or played a key role in something that you never would have even noticed, like Jahan maybe doesn't run the right route on one of the sacks or, a turnover situation where it's on this young player that's not necessarily Sam Howell. And, if you like the talent, which is a whole separate conversation, but if you like the talent, then this is part of the process. And I think two things can be true at once. I think this team can be pretty good right now. I think they're good enough. They're farther along enough in their development to compete week in, week out, far better than they did on the scoreboard on Sunday. And also realize that there's a lot of room to grow towards the ceiling, and that goes far beyond the quarterback position.
Dude, I couldn't have said it better myself. And look at Cosby's playing a new position. Like, we got Nick Gates, who's been around but new position, right? Wiley new to the team, B-Rob new to the team. Like, it's just everywhere you look, there's a lot of new pieces going on. And I've actually been to be quite frank, very impressed with like the level of detail they've been able to play with over the last couple of weeks. And like, it's just little stuff. Like, there's a play in the red zone, and we'll talk about this again in more detail in a second, but it's the play that Sam scrambles for 18 yards, right? And they're running like a corner by the tight end and a post by Terry. And it's a little bit cloudy, and I understand why Sam doesn't like it, but you got Jahan coming from left, the offensive left, into your screen, right? Into Sam's vision under this post corner concept. And I say to myself, like, he's taking too long, but Jahan's running fast. Like, like last week against Denver, where like there's sometimes where he looks like his legs are a little heavy, the altitude's maybe affecting him, but he looks like Jahan. Like, he is cooking across the formation. And I'm like, this is one of those moments where, like, I think back to what Kyle Shanahan said all the time, where it's like it takes 3 or 4 years to like learn an offense. People say that can't be true. And what he means by that is, like, on that play, I'm pretty sure he's +2 split. He's 2 yards from the outside edge of the numbers. Jahan is, right? He's probably going to be on the outside edge of the numbers to make sure that he shows up in the timing and rhythm of the play. And those are the types of details that don't come like overnight. It's just like repetition, understanding, I got this crosser, I become the third element, I got to be a little bit tighter. And that's year 2, you learn that a little bit better. Year 3, you learn a little bit better, right? So you see little details like that. And I'm making an assumption based on the concept or how I would coach it if I was the OC. Right. But I think you see stuff like that and just like, man, that affects the game. Like, imagine if Jahan is 2 yards ahead of schedule, Sam checks it down to him, and instead of Sam running, you get the ball in one of your best playmakers' hands. And I think back to the Giants game last year where he's spinning off guys and he has a 30-yard touchdown. Like, that's the kind of thing you're talking about in the red zone off of a 2-yard split. So I think that point is excellent, Craig. I think that's exactly right. And this is part of it, right? It's not just the new players, it's the new coordinator, right? He's figuring stuff out too. And we'll talk some about that as well. So
yeah, it's funny because like I can hear people already, they might already have had their comment typed out and hit send. B-Rob's not new to the offense. It's like, yeah, he's a second-year player. Like that's still fairly, yeah, and it's a new offense. So like, like this is still a young player in that regard, even though we feel like he's already so good and consistent. He's a great example. Like he's going to learn and get better, but he's already got the longest streak in the NFL of 50+ yards game. He's now got 9 straight 50+ yarders. And by the way, I think that's a good assumption. Terry, after the game, talked about how Sam's got to be able to trust them to be on the right splits amongst other things. So I do wonder if that was a conversation on the sideline that was fresh in Terry's mind when he made that comment about certain plays. So, that would make a lot of sense. Okay, let's dive in to the actual film itself. And everyone's going to want to talk about the pressure. So let's just go ahead and do it. We're not going to do a full 9-sack breakdown like we did last year in the Eagles game with Carson. But, we did just, the two of us, before we started recording, obviously you had watched them and I had gone back and watched as much as I could at the mercy of NFL Game Pass, but we were able to go back and actually watch all 9 sacks on the all 22 right before we started recording. And I think the common theme is the offensive line is on the sacks, not as culpable as many people thought. Right. There are some operational issues from, snap counts on one of them where Leonard Floyd just gets this incredible jump and I don't care if it's Lane Johnson instead of Andrew Wiley. Everyone wants to crush Wiley, but if that's Lane Johnson, he's got a tough time. Or maybe he's the only guy that doesn't. But literally every other tackle in the league is like, what do you want me to do, bro? You got your snap time, your snap count done. There's receiver issues. A lot of places where it's not, there's nowhere to throw. And then obviously Sam holding the ball. And I think there's some numbers that can back this up that we can get to as well. But when you watch the sacks specifically, and if you want to involve some of the other pressures as well, what did you see when you watched the tape?
Yeah, I think, I had, what was it? There's 9 sacks. I think I had 1 true sack on the offensive line. One, I thought actually Arizona runs a really beautiful blitz, Buffalo, runs a really beautiful blitz. And that, sometimes those dudes get paid too. So of the 9, I'd say 2 are on the offensive line. The other ones are some version of Sam. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's not to be I'm not killing Sam here. Let's take the first one, for example. I think it's a good one to start with. So they're in the red zone, right? It's first down. And then they run this kind of concept that I think is fun. You get to a 4-by-1 overload, right? So you get 4 receivers, and that is really challenging. Number 43 for the Bills does a really good job of pushing through to this curl, right? And the window's closed, right? You can't throw the ball. Sam needs to identify that right now and say, I don't love it, and just check the ball down to the back, who has probably conservatively 5 yards to gain, and then more likely probably closer to 8 or 9. So he's probably going to get a first down. You're going to be in 2nd and 10. Instead, you take a sack, right? It's 2nd and 18. The next play, you got to throw an RPO. You don't like it for whatever reason. You tuck it down. You take another sack, and then the following play is the interception. And I just think that to me kind of encapsulates Sam's day a little bit. It's there's opportunities to not be pushing the football down the field, right? And I understand that's what you want to be doing, but it's not there. It's really easy. Yes, no, Jahan runs a great route, not his fault. It's just that number Terrell Bernard does a great job of pushing through to that curl. Yep. That they win that down. but they haven't won it yet because the back's wide open in the flat because they've pushed so deep in terms of covering this concept.
It's actually De'Ami Brown who had come in motion across, and it's like, you can throw at him if you don't like it because you think that flat defender's a little too close for your liking, like throw it at his feet. Or Gibson's running a rail at the sideline. He's not open, but you can throw it over. Like if your feet are set there, throw it over his head.
Right.
Like just like that's a situational awareness. That's like, to me, that's one of the young guy plays because of where you are on the field. Right. You can't take a sack there. You're on the very edge of field goal range. And he compounds it with another sack on the next one, which would have knocked them out. And then it doesn't matter because he throws an interception on third down anyway.
Well,
but
and on that interception too, just another point there, right? Understanding the down and distance, it's 3rd and 19. They're this really conservative cover 2. Like they are so deep at the snap. They're like 8 yards off the ball. Then they drop into this 15-yard range. That dig you're trying to throw, bro, it's dead, right? Throw the ball to Bates in the flat, get 10 yards, kick a field goal. And I think like that, again, that comes with some maturity, right? Like it's just like you're trying to make a play. You're trying to get a first down. Like I don't care how good of a quarterback you are, you're not making that throw. And so like there were times like when I'd play with Matt Ryan, for example, where he would, almost predetermine the flat. Like he would tell you, hey man, like I know your chip help here, but like get out so I can throw you the ball. And you're like, okay. And you know what I'm saying? You're like I don't, like I'm not as aware because like I don't watch film the way it is. I'm thinking about chipping, Cam Jordan or whatever. And he's like, get out. And I'm like, okay. So quick chip and get out, get the ball in the flat, you get like an 8-yard gain and kick a field goal. Like that's good process by him. But that's also a guy who played at the time. Like he was in like year 14. So like that's experience and stuff that accrues. And this is something that Sam can learn from. So.
Right. And that's the kind of stuff that happened all day where it's just like you got to realize it. And that's the difference in college and the NFL. Like college, you can figure it out. You got time. NFL, stuff happens right now. And,
so fast.
And you gotta realize like this. So the second sack is the RPO, right?
Yeah.
This is one where I just look at the play and I'm like, why did he not hand it off? Like, what did you, or like if you want to throw some of the RPO, like if you want to hit the pass on this, the leverage that the corner, I think it's Tre'Davious White, has on Jahan, like he's outside of Jahan
on an out before the snap, or like instantly, and it gets even wider when the ball is snapped. Like, what are you looking at that's making you think this could be an option for me? And it could be a box count situation where it's like numbers. I don't remember the play. Like if it's 6 man in the box, you're throwing the thing. But also, I looked to the front side of that play. It's a hitch, and I don't know the read, but it's a hitch, and then that nickel player is filling the run, and like the throw's there. I don't know. Again, I don't know the read.
Right.
But like he did this last week. He did this against Arizona. And again, like this is one of those things we talked about after the Broncos game. It's like maybe just like takes, like I know everyone says he's great at doing RPOs, but like take some of this off his plate. Like just hand the ball off to B-Rob for a 4-yard gain, and then we're everyone's taking a deep breath, and we're not as pressed on third down. So
it seems like they need to kind of readjust the threshold at least. Like you better love the pass, right?
Yeah.
Not like I like it or like whatever. It's like if it's not so obvious, that it's the most obvious thing in the world, just hand the ball off. And again, situationally on the edge of field goal range, if you get a 0-yard gain, then like whatever, live for third down. The bad stuff happens when you eat it as a passer in those situations, because you also don't have time. Like that's one where it's like, oh, the offensive line. It's like the offensive line is run blocking. That's not on the offensive line at all. They're run blocking. And now all of a sudden the quarterback who should have either thrown the ball instantly or handed it off is back there floating around. And actually, to Sam's credit, he knows like I'm in trouble, and he tries to run, but he doesn't get anywhere because the offensive line is run blocking.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is like everyone says, these sacks, like even the first sack of that series, well, that's on the offensive line. They need to give him more time so he can get to the flat. Like he takes that sack at like 3.2 seconds, which is a very, very long time to be taking a sack, right? And I think that's something people don't understand. Like the average time for him to take a sack in this game was over 3 seconds, which is that ball needs to be out at like 2.7 traditionally, right? And concept dependent, all that kind of stuff. But it just shows you like he's like almost 5/10 longer than like what he needs to be doing in terms of getting the ball out. So it is significant, and this is part of the thing. Like this has been part of his MO for a while. Like he had a very, very high pressure to sack ratio in college, which got a lot of people spooked because he didn't play play well under pressure was the moniker for him coming out. I don't think that is true of Sam. I think he's got the ability to improve in this area, but you're seeing kind of some of his warts a little bit. And this is, again, like I don't want to sound like I'm being kind of laissez-faire or dismissive of it, but he is a young player who needs to grow, and these are the things that he needs to grow out of. Like we saw, like last week against Denver, we saw him make some of the best throws I've seen anybody make since I've been covering the team. So like 4 years, right? And so like that talent is so valuable, but this is also part of the growing process and the learning process. Is you're going through some issues here that young players go through. And so like I'm not being apologetic to Sam or apologetic for the offensive line. Like this is just football. Like when you watch a lot of football, this is just part of it, especially with a young football player. So
yeah. With that said, while the sacks did not necessarily or weren't necessarily reflective of the offensive line's performance on those plays, there were actually other pressures that caused some big plays in the game that we do look at the O-line and go like, hey, that's not good enough. One of them is the interception, not on the goal line, Tre'Davious White. There's a pressure there. But that also like is another play where like the other guys get paid too. I think it's Shaq Lawson on the pressure, and he hits like this sick crossover step where he fakes a stunt and then comes back outside. Like that's just tough sledding if you're Andrew Wiley. But at the end of the day, like you're getting paid to pick it up. Like the other guys are paid too, but like so are you. You lost. But that's one where it's probably a touchdown if he can get the ball where he wants it to Curtis. There is room on the inside. Where White's playing outside of Samuel, but White also makes a tremendous play to finish that. And I think that's the other thing too is like the way the Bills finish plays. That's how you win 37-3 in a game that down in, down out is that tight, is like White coming over Curtis's back. The play that Micah Hyde makes on the pick in the flat. Like these are, Bernard's interception, you say the throw is dead, but like, I actually think Sam somehow miraculously squeezes that in over a lot of linebackers. That's a hell of a catch, man. So it's the kind of thing that, I think that the way Buffalo finished, I think is an important point here. But to back to the original point, if we get too sidetracked by that stuff, the O-line did give up some pressures, even if those aren't the ones that necessarily resulted in sacks.
So there were nine sacks. I think there were 12 total pressures. There's that one that you just described, which again, like that's one where you gotta where you say, oh, Wiley needs to be better, right? He has to be better. Like in this red zone situation, tight red. Let's make a play here. And like that sounds weird talking about an offensive lineman, but like that's how they talk about it. They understand the situation, they understand what's at stake, they understand the play call, and it's like I got to make a play, and he didn't make a play. And then there was another one where they throw the ball to Terry on a crosser, right? And Sam's getting pressure from Wiley's side, I believe, and the corner to Curtis is wide open. And so that's an explosive play that you don't get because the pressure is there. And so we're not kind of absolving the offensive line here because those are two plays right there that would have been huge for the game, huge for the outcome, huge for offensive production that are affected by the offensive line and just not being efficient in terms of pass protection. But it's important to note, like this is something I want to bring up. Like there's in analytics, sacks is a quarterback-driven statistic, okay? And what that means is veteran quarterbacks who with low sack rates, when they're feeling pressure, they just throw the ball away. They have this internal clock that says the ball needs to get out. And so that's kind of why we're on Sam so much, is because he's turning these pressures, 12 pressures, into sacks at an extremely high rate. So taking 9 sacks on 12 pressures is crazy high. I mean, that's almost 70%. So like that's something that, again, like Sam through time and experience will get better at. But again, some of the pressures in the game negatively affected Sam's ability to execute the offense, and we're acknowledging that right now. It just, the sack number does not reflect it the way that I think a lot of fans think it should be reflected.
Yeah. So PFF, the way they wound up doing it, they had 24 total pressures. Okay. Obviously, they wound up counting up 10 sacks. I don't know if they don't do half sacks or what their deal is.
They have a wacky bit with that.
So. These are PFF's numbers, so that's
also for PFF, it's important to note, even on like RPOs or screens, they'll count those as pressures. So like there is that number is a little bit flux.
A little inflated.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
But
24. Yep.
24, 9 hurries, 5 hits, 10 sacks, right? And the reason I'll use PFF's numbers here is because the stat I'm about to give is a PFF stat that I saw, and it was you mentioned this one before the show. I'd seen it yesterday as well. 39.4% of pressures, I think, was the number this year, highest in the NFL for Sam, turning pressures into sacks.
Sure. Yeah.
For comparison's sake, Patrick Mahomes is 2.6.
Dang, bro.
Like, that's the best in the league. So you talk about the awareness to get the ball out of your hands or to avoid sacks with your legs. Like, Mahomes is a magician. So, but even then, like 2% compared to 39%, like
it's crazy.
We got some issues here. But that actually leads to a pretty important question. If you're Eric Bieniemy and you've gone from Pat Mahomes
100%.
to Sam Howell, do you need to change up what you're doing to take some of that off of Howell's plate? Because your boy at quarterback now is not the same as your boy at quarterback the last couple of years, who was a magician at avoiding sacks. And so, for instance, when you bring in Andrew Wiley, understanding there's things you really like about him, but he's going to give up certain stuff, but we were able to insulate him in Kansas City, like there's some stuff there that I think needs to be discussed if we're just being honest about it, based off that stat alone, nevertheless, watching the film.
Yeah, that's a really good stat there, Craig. Good job digging that up. So, yeah, and we could probably do a whole podcast on this, like on this topic, because I think it's really fascinating. So I'll try to just give you like my abridged thoughts on it. So basically what I would say is like, yes, the coordinator does need to adjust. And I think the coordinator has adjusted to a certain extent. Like one of the things that sticks out to me is like, there's not a ton of motion. There's not a ton of formational complexity. A little bit of that is because you're taking some mental load off the quarterback in terms of saying, what's the final formation? What's the final formation? What's the motion? What am I getting from the tells? All those types of things. So that's one element that he's done, right? The other thing is like we've talked about how you and I have talked about how there's not like this crazy diverse collection of concepts in it. It's like they're kind of running the same 5 to 7 concepts out of some different looks, and they're kind of just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I think that's also to help Sam, right? But I do think that there is maybe an avenue where you say, hey man, we can get to more quick game. We can do some more screens. We can do some more bubbles. So some more easy, like relatively easy. Like when you look at the Buffalo Bills, for example, we're going to talk about them in a second with the defense. Like I thought they did a great job of being like, hey man, we're throwing quick game. We're using heavy play action. We don't do a lot of heavy play action looks in this offense, right? Which is fine. They don't do a lot in Kansas City. It's like kind of misdirection, play action, whatever. But it does help. It does help mitigate the rush. It does help create clean pockets. And I think there are some things that maybe, like you can kind of investigate as a play caller and say, I can do some more of X, Y, Z, or find stuff that Sam does. And that's the thing about this that's so hard is like you as a play caller have to communicate with Sam and be like, what things do you like? How do we get to that more often in the game without becoming predictable? And it is this razor's edge. And again, like I said, we can talk about this all day, but I do think that is something that I would be really curious to talk to EB about and just be like, hey man, are there things you can do to help him with this, hurries to pressure or pressure to sack ratio that seems to be an issue. It has been an issue for him since college.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at the top of the hour, our Pick 6 at 6 has the 6 most important things said by Ron Rivera and Sam Howell as they went to the podium on this Wednesday. Then at 6:30, my chat with Marty Smith, the ESPN reporter, who just wrote a brand new book on leadership. So we talked about leadership stuff. We talked about sports stuff. We talked about how to be successful in sports. And Marty's look, everyone knows Marty. Anthony, just one-word answer. Are you ready for the Marty Party?
Yeah.
That wasn't the word I was expecting. I was expecting a much more simple yes, but the point was made.
Yes.
The Marty Party, 6:30, here on the Team 980. Right now, it is time.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, here we go. This is how this works. We stream live on YouTube daily for 3 hours between 4 and 7. Hey, that's what time our radio show is, so there's no excuse, whether you're home or in your car, to not be able to listen to as much as you possibly can. Listen while you take care of that screaming child, whatever. And then when we say something that sparks a thought in your mind, you leave a comment. That, of course, you could do between 4 and 7, or you can watch our on-demand content, not only on the Team 980, but on my page at Craig Hoffman. That's where most of these comments come from, so you want your best chance. Just a little wink, wink, hint, nod between you and me. The on-demand content at Craig Hoffman, best place to leave your comments for this segment. That includes comments like this one from Joshua Pittman on our caller segment yesterday that we put up. Have Commanders fans lost optimism on our Vibe Check Tuesday after the Bills' loss this weekend? How quickly the narrative changes. Let us not forget, 2 weeks ago, Josh Allen was the young, inexperienced guy throwing 3 picks in a single game. I think actually, didn't Anthony have 4? Didn't he have 4 versus the Jets?
3.
It was only 3?
Yeah.
Math, never my strong suit. One game does not make a season or a career, for that matter. I also heard this comparison earlier in the week. This wasn't in the comments, I don't think, but someone may have put it there. Actually, you want to know? You want to know who was talking about it? I think was Jason Kelsey on the podcast on New Heights. Was it that, like, this time last year, people weren't sure about Jalen Hurts. And that's not to say that Sam Howell is going to suddenly become Jalen Hurts, but, like, let's not forget how quickly things change in the NFL. Let's not forget how quickly we're able to, let's put it this way. How quickly things can evolve to thinking certain things about a player, and how much a player can learn over a very short period of time if they have the intellectual capacity, the proper coaching, and a system that helps them. And to me, that's where I think the biggest test is right now is the Eagles took a system or created a system around Jalen Hurts that allowed him to grow within it and achieve results at the same time. Like what they put on Jalen Hurts by the end of the year last year and what they put on him now is different than what they did a couple years ago, certainly what they did at the beginning of last year. But they continued to evolve. They put more on his plate. And I realized for him, that looks a little bit different because he's so special as a runner and he's so well built that he can sustain multiple carries in a game. But I do think it's on Eric Bieniemy to continue to tweak and evolve the offense he wants to run to be tailored for Sam Howell, and that's only going to come with reps together and time together. That's not really even a criticism of Bieniemy. It's just an acknowledgement of the reality of the situation. That gets us to this comment from Michael Park 6938. Anthony, this is a play along comment, so I don't think this is going to apply to you, but just in case. He says the defenses are taking away the short stuff, so Sam has to hold on to the ball for longer developing plays. It's not rocket science. Watch one game. That's why we need to run the ball more to make defenses more honest. By the way, in this comment where he says this isn't rocket science, he spells plays like places. So I typically stay away from the spelling critique, but that was a pretty funny one.
Yeah.
So here's what I want everyone to do. And this doesn't apply, by the way, if you're driving. So everyone else play along. This is only if you're not driving. But if you think you're smarter than Eric Bieniemy, I want you to take your right hand, to be clear, I do not think that I'm smarter than Eric Bieniemy. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for the example. I want you to take your right hand and I want you to put it up in the air. Do it while watching the video. If you're listening on the Metro, on the Odyssey app, sucks to be you. You need to put your right hand up if you think you're smarter than Eric Bieniemy. If you're sitting watching this video at home on YouTube, or you're walking around your kitchen, I hope your kid's not, if you're carrying your kid watching on your smart TV, put the kid in the left hand, right hand up. And then I want you to take that hand, and I want you to face palm yourself as hard as you can in the forehead for thinking you're smarter than a 2-time winning Super Bowl offensive coordinator. Anthony, your hand was down.
Yeah, I'm not smarter than Eric Bieniemy.
And neither is anybody else watching this video.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. If it's that simple, you don't think that EB and the guys that are paid millions of dollars on his staff, or, Ron Rivera, I guess most of the staff's probably not paid in the millions, but, they're paid very handsomely, well into the 6 figures. They can't figure it out. Like, yes, I do think they need to run the ball a little bit more. Yes, I do think they need to get the ball out of his hands a little bit more. But how you do that is not quite as easy. Otherwise, we'd all do it. Hey, all right, here's the game plan today, guys. We're going to avoid turnovers. We're going to get some explosive plays. Ready, go. Hey, coach, what's the, how are we actually going to do those things? Well, I don't know, but you got to do them. Ready, set. It's not how football works. Some people make these things sound so easy. They're not. This is so hard. These are the best minds, the best athletes. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. Are they beyond critique? Of course not. It's my job. I sit here and critique them all the time. Are they beyond reproach? No. Have there been times where I've wondered if I'm smarter than a certain offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator or play caller or basketball coach or whatever? Abso-freaking-lutely, because they do some boneheaded stuff in the heat of competition sometimes. But that's also a good reminder that to do this stuff within the heat of competition, to make these adjustments on the fly with the pressure of the clock ticking and all that kind of stuff, is way harder than watching 6 replays on your couch and being able to pause it so you can go take a leak or get a new bag of chips. So, yeah, there's some stuff with the offense I think they got to figure out. But if Eric Bieniemy thinks that playing a certain way is the best way to move Sam Howell forward, I'm going to trust EB on that. At least more than 3 games where they're 2-1. And a lot of the mistakes are on the quarterback himself, just needing to play better and get through his head the key message of get the ball out of your hands. Jay Anderson, 4254, I think had good perspective on this in his comment. Before the season started, everyone admitted Howell is a young QB, and he's going to have those games where he throws multiple interceptions. He's done what everyone admitted he'd do, so now it's time to see how he responds. Don't lose hope. It's a process. Good things sometimes take time. Well said, Jay Anderson, 4254. You can't be surprised when the thing that you thought would happen happened. Sure, it's more jarring when you actually see it, and 4 interceptions is probably worse than anyone imagined. But, 4 interceptions against a very good Bills defense when you've already won 2 games, and it's your 4th career start. These happen. It's happened to really good quarterbacks, and hopefully Sam Howell is still well on his way to becoming one. On our chat with Jason Campbell, the former Washington quarterback, joined us yesterday on the show. Jason talked about how a running game can be a quarterback's best friend. And Toy Supra 09 said, stay aggressive. Didn't quite go be aggressive, be aggressive, but just stay aggressive. If he always takes, he being Sam, always takes what the defense gives him, he'll turn into a check down Charlie like our past quarterbacks. The only thing he'll be good at is shaking hands with the other quarterbacks after losses. Taking what the defense gives you doesn't mean checking the ball down all the time, because sometimes they come up on the underneath receivers and what they give you is intermediate, or God forbid, they give you long passes. So yeah, he does got to stay aggressive. That's not how taking what the defense gives you works. The point is that you consistently hit those underneath routes. You take maybe a lesser version of the Alex Smith approach of we're not going to go broke making a profit. And then eventually they start to creep up a little bit. And there's a little bit more room for those throws and those receivers that you're now having to, instead of having to be super aggressive and fit balls into super tight windows, you've got a little bit easier throws and your receivers catch it and have space to run. And that's where you get these big touchdown scoring explosive plays. And there's a lot that goes into those types of plays. It's not just on the quarterback or the offensive line to hold up for long enough. It's the receivers being in the right spot at the right time. Do they line up in the right place? Are they a little too wide so they're a little too far away when they should be in the progression? You heard Logan talk about that and take command just a little bit earlier. How Jahan Dotson on one play last weekend probably lined up 2 yards too far to the outside. And if he had lined up where Logan thinks he should have, then he would have been in Sam's vision sooner. And it probably is a completion as opposed to Sam having to throw the ball 7 feet over Cole Turner's head. So there's those kinds of details as well that I think are very easily overlooked and that most fans would never even be aware of. And frankly, I wouldn't be aware of unless I watched a play and was like, why is it taking him so long? But I wouldn't know what the exact solution is because you have to know the offense. You had to have played in the league. You had to have studied to understand that level of detail, but it matters a lot. And so getting those little yards here and there by being efficient, making the right decision, and then forcing a defense to react to you making good, smart decisions, picking up 7 yards per check down, 10 yards per check down at a time, will ultimately open up the deeper stuff down the field. Continuing on Never Read the Comments, you can, of course, leave your comment at Craig Hoffman on any of our on-demand content. You can also leave them at the Team 980, where you can watch us live 4 to 7 p.m. each and every day. This one from frequent commenter Anthony, one of my favorite names in all of our YouTube commenters, Tim Foissy, 9508. Foissy.
One more time.
Tim Foissy.
Okay.
Or perhaps it's Foissier. Tim, I know you're watching. We need a full pronunciation of your name. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Tim says, I think the defense played okay. This is a long comment, but it was really good, so I want to read it. So bear with me here, and then I'll respond, obviously. What if I just read comments and I didn't respond to any of them? That'd be a wacky bit. Anyway, Tim says, I think the defense played okay, but not well enough to beat a top-tier team. The Washington defense was put in some very tough spots and kept the score manageable until the fourth quarter, which is laudable, but they need to be a difference maker most games, like they were versus the Cardinals and Broncos. If Washington wants to win the game, and the defense was not a game changer against the Bills. Washington's defense forced the Bills to punt once. That doesn't cut it. Washington's defense generated very little pressure on Allen. They allowed Allen to break contain for several big plays. That doesn't cut it. The way Washington has been constructed, with top draft capital invested in defensive players time after time, and comparatively less attention paid to the offense, especially the O-line and tight ends, which has been more like diamond in the rough hunting, the defense needs to make game-changing plays, especially against the top teams, and they didn't do that on Sunday. I think it's a really good, reality check type of comment, and the kind of thing that makes me go, do I need to think about the way I'm thinking about this team? Because this is the point that Michael Phillips made when he was on with us on Monday, that the stars did not do enough in this game. There's not enough John Allen. There's not enough Chase Young. There's not enough Terry McLaurin in this game. And, to an extent, because he's the quarterback, there's not enough, obviously, Sam Howell. Sam was incredibly detrimental to their chances on that particular Sunday with the turnovers and the sacks. So I do think, it's just so hard on a human level when you're a defense and you're going out there doing what should be a good enough job to win, and you get no support from your offense. That's just rough. That's a rough day at the offense. The office. I mean, Anthony, this never happens when you're here, but occasionally, God forbid, you're out for a day. You go on vacation, which not God forbid that, but good for you. But if I would have a substitute producer and I'm just killing it, my takes are on, I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to, and they're just hitting all the wrong buttons, I can't win today. Be demoralizing.
I mean, that's
I've probably given you shows like that where you're like, I hit all the right buttons, and Hoffman just
or vice versa. I've done that. So
I wasn't gonna say that. If it's happened, it's certainly not in my memory.
Yeah.
I mean,
I couldn't even fathom doing that.
Yeah, I mean, goes to break. No, but it's think of your job. Some people listening might be solo somethings, but we all on some level rely on the ecosystem around us. And, for a defense to get that little support from an offense, I think is untenable. But to say they truly did enough to win when the team is constructed this way with so much investment on the defensive side of the ball, it is an interesting thought exercise to go, well, if you put it that way, did they really do enough? I just think even if they did, they're not winning that game. They scored 3 points, and it was on the final possession when they were already down 37-0.
Yeah, unless we're scoring off turnovers, That's the only way they could have, quote unquote, did enough. But we didn't really get any. Well, we got one turnover.
Yeah, they got one
Which was
on
a punted throw or whatever you call it.
It's an arm punt.
Yeah, arm punt.
It's 3rd and 20 or something like that. And, instead of throwing a screen and getting stopped and getting a little bit more field position or, whatever, Josh Allen just throws the ball down the field where it would have been punted anyway. Like, okay, fine. Take your shot. So, yeah, I think it's a good comment and it's good perspective to keep in general. I just don't know how much it applies to the Bills game because, good gracious, the offense was unsupportive, to say the least, of the defense. But good thought, Tim Foissy. Sidney Ashford, 1977. Our O-line is a whole Target shower curtain. Are Target shower curtains bad, Anthony?
No.
Not that I want a shower curtain blocking for me if I'm a quarterback against a defensive lineman, but...
Yeah, I don't know where he got that analogy from.
Yeah, it's a weird one. How dare you slander Target? That's really honestly why I put it in there, because I thought that comment was funny. It's also wrong. The offensive line is fine.
Yeah.
Maybe Target shower curtains are just average. Maybe that's the point. Sydney, we need more about we need more about Target shower curtains. We need this explained. All right, then we got two contenders, Anthony, for comment of the week. Russell does Dum Dum of the Day. These are our Dum Dum of the Week comments, if you will. You ready for this one?
Yes, sir.
First nominee, King Slim 2027. We straight up got exposed for the mediocre team we are. That's not the fun part. We have no dogs on the O-line. I don't care how Gates looks. He's not a dog. Leno is so damn trash. We need dogs on the O-line, not nice guys like Leno and Wiley. I would love Slim here, King Slim, beg your pardon, to tell Nick Gates, a dude who has started multiple fights already in actual games this season between the preseason and the regular season. I would like you to tell him that he's not a dog. How do we think that would go for King Slim?
I think Nick Gates, he's a nice guy. I think he would.
I think it would go from King Slim to Prince snapped in half. It's my least favorite kind of internet commenter.
It wouldn't go well for him. No. Especially if they lined up.
Nick Gates would do one of the, just a step at him, and dude would just
flinch.
He
gonna put himself.
Yeah, you ruined it.
He almost pooted on himself.
May J.D. McKissick live forever. And then last one from Game and Able 482. And I think this person just also tweeted at me as well, because it's the same dumb idea expressed the same way. You ready for this take, Anthony?
Yes, sir.
Should I do it in like an Irish accent or Scottish accent?
Yeah, give me your best shot at it.
Gotta get in the lilt. Okay, here we go. The Scottish accent. No wonder it felt like the Bills knew what was coming. Somebody needs to ask EB why he doesn't cover his mouth on the sideline while calling plays. Won't take teams long to figure out exactly what is coming if they can read his lips. Shocking no one on the staff has noticed this after 3 weeks.
That was pretty good.
Way better than the point that was made.
Yeah.
Do you believe this dude thinks, and it's definitely a dude, this dude thinks that the reason the Commanders got their asses kicked is because EB doesn't cover his mouth with his play sheet, and the Bills have lip readers on the other sideline who know the offense well enough that they can then read EB's lips perfectly, relay that information to the Bills defense, all while the play clock is happening and dudes are running around trying to get lined up and figure out their assignments.
Fascinating thought. I just think it's a dumb, to say the least.
Not very smart.
No.
Try again. Do better, laddie. That's never read the comments. You can leave yours at Craig Hoffman on any of our on-demand content, and we will do this again next Wednesday at 5:30. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show,
on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app and live on YouTube at the Team 980. It is time for our Pick 6 at 6. They tell us we should not really engage in certain parts of the content process. We should definitely post our content. We should tease our content. Hey, tell the people when things are happening on the show. Put that out there on social media. Then make sure you share the content afterwards. But definitely do not engage with the people who comment on it. It's the deepest, darkest underbelly of the internet. No. Do not read the comments. But every single week, 5:30 on a Wednesday, what do we do, Anthony Haney?
We read
Yep.
those comments, baby.
I'm so glad that you gave us a really good one there, because next week we're going to have a fancy new intro for this. We just got the big voice guy, old Jim Cutler, to do some stuff for us. And in my head, the fancy intro includes Anthony going, read those comments, and he just gave me the material I needed to work with. He didn't even know that. You didn't know that, Anthony. Tell the people you didn't know that.
I did not at all.
But next week, you bet your bottom dollar that you're going to see it. It's a running bit on the show, but also like an actual thing. I'm trying to learn French. My wife and I are going to Paris next year for the Olympics, so I'm trying to learn French. It's incredibly difficult. I'm very bad at it. Tips for someone learning French. You did the reverse. For people that don't know, you started as a French speaker, and I was reading on Wikipedia, so I don't know if it's true, but also Haitian Creole, first two languages, and then had to learn English, which I know is very, very difficult to learn when it's not your native language. French, English, they don't seem compatible. What's your tip for me as I try to learn French?
I would say watch movies in French with English subtitles. That's what I did. I watched a lot of movies in French, but I had the English. No, I watched a lot of movies in English with the French subtitles. So like movies, music, it's kind of something that's like easy, like on the brain. It's not too much information, but you can still enjoy it and you can see the conversation, because that's the hardest part. Learning like a little word, like to say like, hey, my name is this or whatever, that's easy. But holding a conversation, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, right now I'm really just trying to master, like, I'm American, do you speak English? Because I think in Paris I can get away with that.
Yeah, so je suis américain.
Yeah.
Et je ne parle pas en français.
See, even the way you said that is not the way Duolingo says to say that. So I'll just have to come back to my new French tutor, Benjamin Sejus. BSJ, I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Sure.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, it is time for a Marty party. Marty Smith from ESPN will join us to talk about his new book, Sideline CEO, Leadership in Sports. Pretty fascinating conversation that we had earlier today that we will debut for you at 6:30 here on the Team 980. Right now, though, it is time at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday to get you caught up on everything that Ron Rivera and Sam Howell said earlier today. It is time for our Pick 6 at 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their number one fan.
All right, so let's start off with some of what Sam Howell had to say. That will be our
number 1.
And the number one thing is that Sam Howell is young and learning, and the Bills game left with him with a whole lot to learn.
My job to get the ball before I get hit, and just knowing that it's not going to be, I'm not going to have perfect protection every single time I snap the ball, and for the most part, those guys are doing a good job, and I just got to do a better job. I think it's not on one person or one group. I think collectively we can always do a better job.
I think it's really easy to say. The tougher question is going to be how do you ultimately go about doing it? Because, like, if I tell you, hey, you got to get the ball out early, then you start to get antsy, and that's not a great way to play quarterback. Can you call concepts, and can your receivers do better to get open sooner? Well, then that's easy to get out early. Because it's not like Sam is just like standing back there for the sake of it. Like, he's not seeing what he needs to see fast enough. So I think the question is, if I'm Tavita Pritchard specifically as the quarterback coach, Kenny Zampese, who's helping out in that room, if I'm Jacoby Brissett as the backup to try to help Sam understand that, like, you got to see number 1 faster. And if number 1 is dead, you got to get to number 2 faster and 3 faster. And that's how you ultimately get to your check down. Or sometimes you just go, 1's not there, check down. Or 1, 2, check down. Like, just because there's 5 eligible receivers on the play and number 5 is considered your check down doesn't mean that you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every play. You don't got time for that. Like, you got to go 1, 2, check down. 1, 2, 3, check down. 1, check down. Like, whatever the process is between schematics of giving faster developing routes to calling more screens and things like that, to running the ball more, to make it so he's not standing back in the pocket reading defenses quite as often during a game, to the actual functional piece of Sam getting through his progressions faster so that the ball is out faster. That is the trick of the process. That is the thing that they are trying to figure out. It is hard. It is difficult. It is something that will take time. But it's not a matter of, hey, dude, just throw it faster. If he saw the stuff and the places to throw it, he'd throw it. He's not waiting for fun. And I think that's like an important differentiation that I don't think I've made until right now, hearing that comment, that I probably should have been making all week. But just kind of in general, I haven't heard been making enough, that it's not as simple as, hey, man, 1, 2, 3, throw the ball. Where? To whomst? If someone was open, I would have thrown it. Okay, how do you get to the open guy faster? Because there will be someone open. And if not, do you know where to throw the ball into the dirt? That is the key question for Sam Howell.
Number 2.
Of course, he's young, so that is going to take some time for him to learn, adapt, adjust. Does Sam Howell take any solace in the fact that this is only career start number 4?
Yeah, honestly, no. I don't make any excuses for myself. I expect to play much better than I played on Sunday, and my teammates and this organization deserves for me to play better than I played on Sunday, and I just got to do a better job. I can't go out there and make the excuse that I'm young, because the teams that we're playing, they don't care. The scoreboard doesn't care. And so I got to do my job at a higher level in order for this team to go where we want to go. So I'm excited to get back out there on Sunday.
That is the correct answer. Because while I can, as an analyst, go, hey, look, this is a process. It's going to take time. Sam's approach needs to be, how do I play well this weekend? Because this isn't some science experiment where we see how good Sam Howell is. This is an NFL football season where you are trying to win games. And Sam's got to learn and also try to win at the same time. And this is why some of Ron Rivera's recent comments have driven me absolutely bananas. That it's like, oh, yeah, it's about developing Sam. Like, it is, but you're also trying to win. And if running the ball a little bit more or doing things a slightly different way might be incrementally worse for Sam's development, but help you win games in something from incremental to significant in terms of the boost you'd get, you should do the thing that's going to make you win games. And I honestly don't believe that they're not. Like, I think Ron's just saying stuff. It's one of those things where, like, I don't really know if it's something worth getting mad over. I know Linnell's super mad about it right now, but I don't even believe Rivera when he says it. I think he's just saying something that he thinks sounds good. So, yeah, they need to do the things that are going to help them win games. Sam needs to figure out how to play better so that they can win games. And also the rest of us can take a freaking chill pill on Howell and what he'll be in the long term, because it is 4 games in 3 this season in this offense, and there's still a long, long way to go, not just in the season, but on his developmental arc, if he's going to be good enough by the end of the season to have earned a starter's spot next year. Like, he's not done developing after this year, unless, he stinks, and then he's not going to be playing, and then he's probably not going to get that many more opportunities. So it's important to keep in mind the perspective of all parties involved. I love that answer from Sam Howell.
Number 3.
In our pick 6 at 6 is the jump between college and the pros. What is the difference starting college versus pros? Howell, a lot of starts in college, now 4 under his belt in the pros.
I don't know. I mean, I take the same approach, so I wouldn't say there's much of a difference. I would say it's much harder. It's hard to play in the NFL, and it's easier in college, I would say, for sure. And obviously the players are much better, but from an approach standpoint and a mindset standpoint, there's not much of a difference.
I'm fine with that answer. Like, yeah, you prepare the best you can. I think you learn over time how to refine your approach. You learn over time how to better use your time now that you don't have to go to class and this is your job and you have access to the facilities in a different way. You have access to a different level of knowledge, access to a different level of resources. How you professionalize your routine is one thing, but the principles of what got you there, the approach, the mentality, the idea that you're trying to maximize what you got, like, that shouldn't be different from college to pro. And then the game itself is obviously very different because you're like, if you're in the NFL, you were one of the best players on the field all the time in college. And Sam Howell was certainly that. He was one of the best players in the ACC. Every single year he strapped it up. From his freshman year, which was pretty good, to his sophomore year, which was exceptional, to his junior year, where was not as good statistically, but he was hugely impactful for a North Carolina team that he dragged to an okay record despite the talent bleed that they had to the NFL. So I think that, for Sam, he's the thing that I love the most about him is his approach. I'm happy that he said that, and it's not surprising to me that he said that his approach has been the same, because this comes off as a guy who has known what he's doing for a long time, even though the job of NFL quarterback is one that is still fairly new to him. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We do Pick 6 at 6 multiple times per week, where we take the biggest storylines in the Commanders universe, condense them down into 6 concise, neat points today on a Wednesday. Often that comes as 6 sound bites from the head coach and the quarterback who spoke earlier today. We're 3 in, 3 left, 1 more from Howell.
Number 4.
And it's about his receivers. There's a fine line of giving receivers, force-feeding a guy like Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, while not overdoing it and forcing a ball where it shouldn't go. How is he navigating finding that fine line and staying on the right side of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think for me, my thought process is, we have so many good receivers and playmakers, and I want to get all of them the ball. But I just kind of go through my progressions the way I'm supposed to go through it. I don't really sometimes I focus on who is where and what position, but for the most part, I'm going through my progressions, how I'm taught to go through them, and whoever's in that spot at that time and if they're open, they're going to get the ball. But there are some things in the offense where it's kind of pick a side or pick a guy, and obviously I know who I like in certain situations. But yeah, I mean, I just think overall I got to do a better job of getting those guys the ball because they're special players, and we got to just continue to spread the ball around.
I mean, his job is to get the ball out of his hands better, which is something that he's not doing very well right now. We talked about that during number one. It's Eric Bieniemy's job to get the right position. If the number one read on a certain play and you think you're going to get, this guy open, your primary against a certain coverage, and you anticipate the defense calling it, you got to make sure that a Terry's in that spot, a Jahan's in that spot. Like, you can scheme it up to get guys touches. Obviously, there's always design touches as well, whether that's a jet sweep, whether that is a screen, whether that's a straight handoff to a guy like a Curtis Samuel, which they've done a good job of getting at least one in every game. So there's different things you can do that are outside of Sam's prerogative. And then to translate a little bit and expand on things he's hinting at while trying not to say too much. Been around the game. It's really not that. It's not like I'm divulging secrets here. There are certain situations where you see it's man-to-man coverage. Well, if it's man-to-man, the concept becomes, I don't want to say irrelevant, but the concept becomes pick your matchup, right? If I got 5 routes on in terms of 5 eligible receivers and they're all being guarded one-on-one, I want to pick, so this is like a zero blitz situation where everyone who's not in man coverage is blitzing. I literally just want to pick who I think is going to win on their route fast enough for me to get the ball out of my hands before all those blitzing dudes come and get me. Obviously, that the equation changes if you add in a single high safety or a plug player, kind of an underneath zone roaming defender. If you have cover 2-man or whatever the machination of the coverage is, where you are no longer just picking based off one-on-one, perhaps there's a bracket, a double, a safety over top that shuts something down. But by and large, like in those man-to-man situations, for instance, the play to Curtis Samuel, I think is a great example. He sees that there's a certain coverage. I think it was a cover 1 situation where there's a single high safety over top. Everyone else is manned up. They're playing press coverage right off the board. Maybe they're anticipating a run and they want to shut certain things down. And he looks at Curtis Samuel and is like, I got a young corner over there. I'm going to stay away from Tre'Davious White. Dude's got no help and he can't run with Curtis. So I'm going to put the ball out there, and he gets a big gainer to Curtis Samuel. Those are the types of opportunities that you're looking for if you're Sam Howell. But against most NFL coverages where it's zone and zone match, like you got to figure out what's the concept, who's going to be open when, and can I get the ball to them, and what jersey number they're wearing / who they are is really more of Eric Bieniemy's responsibility to anticipate that coverage and put guys in the right position pre-snap, because it's on Sam to just read out the coverage and get the ball where the coverage says it's supposed to go. All right, on to Ron Rivera with a couple more thoughts and looking ahead to the Eagles for today's Pick 6.
Number 5.
Let's start off with one of the big talking points here in Washington, and that is the O-line. That's not really a talking point in Philly. They are one of the absolute best in the league, anchored by Jason Kelce in the middle. Lane Johnson might be the best right tackle maybe ever in the NFL, frankly. So many of the great tackles, obviously, on the left side, but a guy that deservedly makes all pros on the right with regularity. Just an incredible, incredible player that really only played right tackle probably because Jason Peters was at left tackle for so long. Then he was entrenched at right tackle, but they're good across the board. So what does Ron Rivera see in that Eagles O-line, and is there any envy for what they've got over there?
Well, they've been there a while. Their center is probably one of the really, really good ones. Has played in this league a long time. And when you have an anchor like that, it naturally a lot of good things will happen. It's a veteran group. It's a big, massive group. And I think the key to is, being together.
I think the togetherness and the mass is also important. If you listen to the Kelce Brothers podcast, New Heights, when they talk about the tush push, or Anthony, I don't know if you've heard of this. There's a new name for the Eagles QB sneak play. Have you heard it yet?
No, I haven't.
I actually love this. I think Kyle Brandt made a plea for it this morning on Good Morning Football, and apparently it got back to Sirianni, and he liked it. The brotherly shove.
I seen some. Did you? I think I seen it on Twitter, or you might have sent it.
Maybe I sent it to you for real things. I sent you a lot of stuff today.
Yeah, you sent me
the internet
something.
was firing content out left and right today.
I did see brotherly shove. I just didn't understand the context, and I didn't care to
It's
look
the
it up.
city of brotherly love, so they've got now the brotherly shove.
Wow.
It's really good, isn't it?
That's really good.
But when Jason and Travis Kelce talk about this on New Heights, they always joke about how it's just mass moving together. But that's what it is. It's like it's really force, but like force. Here's your lesson for the day. You ready?
Uh-oh.
Force equals mass
times acceleration.
Hey!
I was in school that day.
He was in school that day.
Physics, baby.
One of the few formulas I remember because it has a lot to do with fitness. Force equals mass times acceleration. And so Jalen Hurts and his 600-pound squatting legs, that's a lot of force. And you know, that's the acceleration portion. But then you got all that mass in there, and that's why they're so good on 3rd and 4th down in that tush-push, brotherly shove situation. But they're good, they're big, they're also the acceleration part they're pretty good at, they're mobile. It's just a really good line all across, and obviously the Washington one is a work in progress, but they also use it well, and I think that's something that Washington is still learning how to do with all of the new pieces. The entire line outside of Leno is either new or in a new spot. Bieniemy, new OC. Like, we need to remember, as good as Eric is, like, it's his 3rd game with this group, and people have been in and out because that's the nature of the NFL. And I think some patience probably would do us all good, but at the same time, time waits for no man, certainly for no football team. They only get 17 of these, so they got to play better. Last but not least,
Number 6.
DeAndre Swift. Crazy to think that he only got like 2 carries in week 1. He has been rolling for Philly, and he's got Ron Rivera's attention.
Played, sound, solid up front. Got to be gap discipline, and there's also a point where if you can force them, into certain situations, you can benefit that way. You just got to be able to take care of your jobs.
Those situations are 3rd and long, where no one is as good as Josh Allen that you faced last week. Jalen Hurts, obviously dangerous. This is a very, very interesting test for the Washington defense because they need to be so much better up front in terms of generating pressure, but there's also the danger that Jalen then takes off running. It is super challenging on the back end. As great as Diggs and Davis were last week, Brown and Smith combined might be better. I think Diggs is probably the best of that bunch overall, but like not by much. Brown's ridiculous. Smith is phenomenal. And Gabe Davis is no slouch, but like he's the 4th guy in that group. So there's just great talent all across the board. And if you want to be elite defensively, you measure up against a team like this. I think the offense obviously has to help. Playing complementary football becomes very important, as we saw in the Monday night win last year, which, by the way, is the only game that Jalen Hurts has lost that he has started, I believe, in the last 21. He's 20 of his last 21. The Commanders are the one. They'll want revenge. And, of course, Washington will want to show much, much better after the 37-3 loss against Buffalo. That's our pick 6. We take the 6 most interesting stories of the day and give them to you at 6 o'clock from the Commanders. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it's time for the Marty Party. Marty Smith joins us here on the team at 9:80. Mr. Fortier, how are you? And are you using the headphones that I sent you?
I am using the headphones that you sent me, so I'll not be pulled over. And I got to tell you, man, seeing the craziness coming out of Chicago today with the Justin Fields comment, with the DC abruptly resigning, it's just like giving me flashbacks to what this team used to be like. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking about football in a stadium? That feels odd.
Right. One, God, this call quality is just exceptional. So just, I gotta say, I'm gonna send you a clip later just so you can hear how clear you are. 2, we actually, so earlier in the show, we did a segment called This, That, and the Other Thing, and we wound up putting the Bears stuff in that. And yeah, it felt very oddly familiar, but also safely distant, which I think is good. All right, we got a lot to get to and not a lot of time. So first, let's...
James James Smith-Williams just pulled up and honked at me. I'm on the radio with Craig Hoffman right now. Do you want to say
What's
something?
up, James?
How you doing, man?
What's up, James? Although you probably can't hear it because this is just in Sam's
I'll put him on speaker
headphones.
quick. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Feeling good. Just talking to Sam. Last time we did a hit with Sam, he put Matt Paris and Ben Standing on, so this is an upgrade.
Way better. Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
Definitely an upgrade.
All right, let's make sure nobody gets in trouble here. All right, James, drive home safely.
Thank you. You have a good one.
All right, goodbye. James Smith-Williams, everybody. I mean, that's been an ongoing bit.
Oh, okay.
I think Travis Kelce's got the best bit of all. He's just dating Taylor Swift. So,
That
you know,
too.
forget the lyrics. and then we got our guy Ian Eagle talking about Travis Kelce finding blank space in the end zone. Now, that's how you do it. By the way, I did follow up. For those of you that listened to the end of the show on Monday, we said we're going to have to investigate. Was that, like, did Noah Eagle feed Ian, his dad, the lyric? I texted Ian, and I was like, we might have to have you on the show to do this. And he's like, there's nothing to investigate. I'm just a Swiftie.
Ooh, okay.
And I was like, oh, well, there goes the segment idea, Ian.
Did you see Jason Kelce confirm the rumors, though?
Yes, he kind of did on WIP today, which is very silly. Jason, your podcast is very good and very successful. If you're going to confirm the biggest rumor in the celebrity world,
exactly,
don't do it on, do it on a radio show, obviously. Don't do it on a radio show. Do it on your own podcast, you moron. I'm just kidding, Jason. You're definitely not a moron. Jason Kelce, not a moron. It was just not the, why am I doing, let's keep going with the comments. We have a new submission to the Real Things Hall of Fame. The F-35 is a fighter jet that the military has. It is very expensive. Very expensive. The F-35 program costs the U.S. government / the military over $1 trillion. Like, this is one of the most expensive things in the U.S. government's budget is the program that makes these planes. Each one is incredibly valuable and expensive. And something happened during a training mission, but this jet leaves, they go on a training mission, and it's in stealth mode, apparently, and the pilot has to eject. So the pilot's like, I'm up out of here. Pilot lands relatively safely, has, I think, an injury or two that has to be tended to, but, like, is alive. But then they lost the jet. So the jet disappeared from the radar. The U.S. government's like, well, we don't know where the jet is. And so the Buford, which is the suburb not suburb, it's in South Carolina. It's by Charleston. Close enough. If people are actually from there and don't want to say that and want to say it's by Hilton Head, I know I grew up in the state. Leave my geography alone for the sake of the story, which I've now made less efficient by telling you all of those things because I can't help myself. Talk about a plane crash. Hey, we're back. So the F-35 gets essentially lost, and they're like, I don't know where this very expensive warplane went. And lo and behold, sometime the next day or later that day, it crashes somewhere, and luckily no one's hurt. But this $100 million plane is gone. Whoopsies. We crashed the plane. And this is an eyewitness account from a Charleston area television station of someone who heard the crash.
In the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
He first started getting at me. I said, what's a meteorite coming out of space or something? And I said, well, if the airplane, it needed to be reported. Let the thing be flying this way. Too low.
The F-35B airplane wreckage created an extensive debris field.
That voice, we gotta get a drop for the voice because it might be better than Steph Curry's.
I was gonna say, I feel like we have to do a comparison. Can I pull this off with? Yeah, okay. So I had to compare or see if I had enough channels on the board to do this. But we got Steph Curry here. We got Charlie Brown here. And we got our mans here.
His is better, though.
I think his is the best one. His is definitely, it's not quite Charlie Brown. It's definitely close to Steph Curry, though.
Yes.
We'll see you tomorrow. It's Hoffman Show on the Team 980. We're on YouTube as well, at the Team 980, where you see the bearded face of a smiling man. Wrote a very, very good book. It's called Sideline CEO, Marty Smith. You also know him, of course, from ESPN. Marty, thanks so much for the time, man.
I so appreciate the time, brother. Thank you so much for giving me a platform to chat about it.
Absolutely. So you probably done dozens of these interviews, so I'm going to skip some of the basic questions. I want to go a little next level with you. Rather ask you. So after writing a book on leadership, what's your definition of leadership? Screw that. I actually want to talk to you about the concept of success, which includes other things than just leadership. And actually, one of my favorite quotes from the book comes from Lane Kiffin, who talks about how leadership is just a part. But let's not forget that, competence in what you're doing is pretty important, technical aptitude. So when you write this book about leadership and you become focused on it and then zoom back out, what's the formula for success and how does leadership play into that?
I personally believe that it goes back to something that Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney both told me in Sideline CEO, but they use different phrasing to get to the same end. Saban said, be a champion. Swinney said, best is the standard. And Craig, let me explain that to you. Saban told me that in the Alabama football facility, they have a goals pyramid on the wall, okay? It does not say win an SEC championship. It does not say win a national championship. It says be a champion. So what's that mean? That means demand of self to be the absolute best you every single day so that the person beside you can be the best him or her every day. And if you're doing what you have to do every day to be a champion, then you'll thereby probably have the opportunity to win a championship. Process over outcome, inside out. And what does that do, brother? That results in the joy of success, not the relief of success. Those are very different emotions, sir. And Dabo says it best is a standard. It is demand of self to find your best. Be your best every rep, every day, everything. And then if you find your best, you might have the opportunity to be the best. Kind of same philosophy with different phrasing, but that to me is success. Well, then from there, you have to have people who believe in you. This is where leadership comes in.
Right.
You got to have people that believe in you, crack doors for me. I've always been a guy, you crack a door for me, I'm kicking it down. I'm kicking it down, man. And
that's
so
why the other book's called Never Settle.
Never Settle, baby.
That's a different podcast.
That's
a different interview.
That's it. But I think that really is sort of the encapsulation of how to find the most successful you.
It's actually a concept. You didn't talk to Sean McVay in this particular book, but it's one that McVay, if you had, he would have given you a triangle of great coaches there. He always says the standard is the standard, which I found a great way to say that. It's uncompromising. I've always really liked that from Sean, a guy I covered here in D.C. before he went out to L.A. You also hit on one of my favorite kind of concepts in coaching, which is methods versus principles. You talk about this on very early in the book, page 6, according to my notes. So I'm going to trust my notes on that. And there's a great saying that a friend of mine has that goes, methods are many, principles are few. Methods don't always last, principles always do. So when you finally put down the pen for this book,
what are the principles that stick with you that are timeless about leadership?
Well, I broke it up into, first of all, that's a phenomenal point. And I broke it all. So it took me a minute to figure out how to write this thing. I had the title in my head, Sideline CEO. That's a baller title. Because good. I've been blessed to be around Nick Saban a lot, Dabo Swinney a lot, Kirby Smart, all these coaches in my ESPN job. So I'm like, they are CEOs. So how do I interview them? Is each coach a chapter? What do I do? Well, during COVID, I was very intentional about my time with my wife, my time with my children, and staying out of this. And in order to stay out of my phone, I was very intentional about reading books. One that I tried to read one every 10 days. One of the ones I read was called I Want My MTV. And it was written in an oral history format. Like VJ, 3 sentences. David Lee Roth, 1 sentence. CEO of Viacom, paragraph. Shot up in bed one night and I went, holy bleep. That's it. And my wife was like, Lainey was like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to work. I'm going to work right now. And this was like 11:30 at night and I started writing the book right then. So I tell you all that to go, okay, how do I silo this thing? And I basically boiled it down to 8 different silos. What is leadership to start? All right, that's a fundamental part of it. And then where do trust, delegation, culture, crisis management, self-evaluation, evolution, communication and listening, shutting your mouth and opening your ears to let people know that you really love them, that you care. Where do all these things fit? So I broke each of the 20 champion coaches into those silos in an oral history format. And it really did kind of work because it's an easy read. I mean, super easy.
Yeah, no, you'll fly through it. The book is Sideline CEO. We're talking to Marty Smith, of course, ESPN, but just wrote a second book, and we're happy to spend some time with him here on the Hoffman Show. You also had to decide who was going to be in the book, which is an interesting decision-making process I'd like to unpack with you a little bit, because you talked to, you said, 20 championship coaches and executives. You know, got like Christian Horner in there as the principal at Red Bull's Formula One team, for instance. And I'm curious how you decided to include folks who maybe not have always lived up to their own standard. Urban Meyer's the one that is the one that comes most top of mind. He's clearly one of the best college football coaches ever in terms of success. And in the book, some of this stuff that he has is just incredible in terms of the conciseness, the clarity, how much he's clearly thought about this stuff. But he's also the same guy, had that incredibly embarrassing stint in Jacksonville. He's had controversies at Ohio State and Florida. And to his credit in the book, he's like, yep, I've made a bunch of mistakes.
Yep, that's why I thought he was great.
Yeah, how do you process a figure like Meyer, and ultimately why do you decide to include him in the book?
I included him in the book for a lot of reasons. Number one, from a philosophical, technical leadership perspective, to your point, Craig, I mean, he's brilliant in this book. I mean, just, my goodness, like breaking trust down into 3 different areas of trust. Like, that stuff's awesome. I love every bit of it. But it is fair to criticize the leadership because of what happened in Jacksonville. We all know the stuff. I judge every person on their own merit. And when I interviewed Urban, it was before Jacksonville. And so he has been amazing to me. When I was first dropped into college football from the NASCAR world, ESPN put me with Ohio State. The year that they had Ezekiel Elliott and Michael Thomas and Joey Bosa and Darren Lee and Raekwon McMillan and all those dudes that went to the league and won a national title in the inaugural college football playoff. He gave me time, insight. I mean, trust me, he told me himself, his initial reaction was, why the hell did they send us this NASCAR guy? That's what they think of us? Yeah. But he told me this is his words. I won him during that 6 weeks together based on the way his players reacted to how much I cared for them and their stories. So I judge everybody on their own merit, Craig. I wasn't in the Jacksonville Jaguars locker room. Of course, I've read all the stories about toxicity and all that stuff, and it didn't work. It just didn't work, and he admits that in the book. And so, ultimately, I thought that his tutelage was so strong that it certainly deserved positioning in that book. And I think I would encourage everyone to read it yourself and then make your own judgment.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think you can also take knowledge from people that don't always live up to their own,
How many of us are flawed?
Yeah.
All right, Craig, how many of us, like, it's funny how we love to, especially with social media and all that BS, and how keyboard cowboys just love to fire away, baby. Let's build up our own insecurities by tearing other people down. Let's fill voids and failures in our own life by hurting others. And this is not me defending anything Urban's done. That's not what I'm doing.
That's a good
I am
clarification.
speaking for myself. Yeah. And so it's just interesting to me how the human element, especially in today's world, we're pretty quick to do that.
Yeah. I think it also is what makes a guy like Saban so amazing. Lane talks about how Saban is one of the few guys that actually lives up to it, lives it every day, and you see why Nick is Nick, and everybody else, even if they're wildly successful, ain't Nick. Marty Smith is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Power dynamics also talked about a lot in the book. And they talk about how they've changed over time and persistence and having to shift the communication over the years as players have gained more power, specific college coaches that you talk to. And I'm curious what you think after talking to all these folks separates college coaches who maybe rely on that power structure versus those that could go to the league versus someone like a Christian Horner who sits over the top of a 1,500 parade.
Joke this for Carson. Experience. His faith is indomitable throughout any of that. Highest highs, most crushing lows. And he shares a lot of that with me in the book. And I think he said it best: when you're in a high pressure, high demand, must win now, winning is the standard platform, and there's that one 5-letter word that when you and me went to J school, they told us, always follow the money. Because when you're dealing with money, everything changes. And when you're dealing with NBA money, and now, today, quarterbacks and defensive ends are starting to make 9-figure guarantees. Leadership shifts a little bit, man. And so all of that's really fascinating to me, and they do such a great job in the book of breaking all that down. And to your point, in the college game with NIL and at the high school level, recruits are making demands. I'll come to your school if. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different world, man. The college football I fell in love with is gone.
Yeah, and I think that's where the principles come through. Like, I think the coaches, like Izzo talks about this very well in the book, like certain principles that have held through over time. All right, what's your favorite anecdote from the book? Just like your favorite story that gets told. Forget the hardcore, like, oh, this is what leadership is about. What's your favorite, most entertaining story from the book?
I think it's from Doc. So quickly, I know we got just a couple minutes, but the crisis management chapter is absolute brilliance that anybody who's a leader in any way can inject into your daily path and use, because it's vulnerability. We see these folks that are in the pages we see them in press conferences, we see them yelling on the sideline, but so many of them stripped themselves for me and shared these unbelievable moments of vulnerability and crisis management. So go read that. One of the most amazing principles and moments in the book was Doc Rivers sharing the Ubuntu philosophy with me. And for those of you who don't know what that is, Doc and the Celtics, Kevin Garnett, Rondo, those guys used in 2008 to win the championship in the NBA. And that is, the Ubuntu philosophy is, Doc educated me on this, the South Africans used it to really sort of found the culture of Africa. And it is, I am only myself through others. I can only be my best through your best. And then my favorite sentence in the book is this: I can't be threatened by your good. Holy cow. Dude, that is such a beautiful sentence. I cannot be threatened by your good because so many of us, myself included, are insecure people. And if we're not threatened by your good, we can find our best selves.
That is a topic that actually my wife and I talk about a lot. We're both fitness professionals as well as me doing this and in fitness circles because it's something for everybody. It's such a big world.
That's right.
The idea of a scarcity mindset is very common, and it's bad. It's not just bad because it's I don't know, immoral feels too strong, but I can't think of a better word right now. There's like a morality play, but it's also just bad business. And I think that's something that comes through in the book too, is when these coaches kind of make that discovery, they really take off. Also, I did enjoy the Peloton reference. Speaking of fitness in the book, we
Isn't that an interesting analogy?
Yeah, it hit home with me. As I sit here, Marty, I'm not kidding you. My Peloton is right there, and
mine's right there.
Pieces of me
mine's
that are
literally 10 feet away.
There we go. Mine's about 3, so I'll race you when we get done talking about this. The new book is Sideline CEO, Marty Smith, ESPN. Also, I've read Never Settle as well. If you want Marty's kind of life story, it is real good. Great read. Marty, appreciate the time, sir, and hopefully we get a chance to catch up down the road.
Craig, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And again, thank you for giving me the platform to share. Have a great day.
My pleasure.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up the show, real things in just a moment. What we got tomorrow, Anthony, on the show? I know we had a couple of things. One of the things that we had, I checked in with the potential guest. Wow, that is really bright all of a sudden. Just blinding myself, which is cool. One of the guests that I checked in with, not going to be able to join us tomorrow. So the one that this is a note for you on the rundown. He's going to join us next Thursday. We're 8 days from Commanders Bears. So 8 days from now, we'll be at MGM National Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I will not be wrapping up a radio show. I will be in the dead heat of a long race of radio that day. But I'll have Logan with me, so it'll be fine. Big fella, I've done my leg. You just want to start talking? Okay, thanks. But what we had a bunch of other stuff. Anything that's locked in yet? Or we got a blank slate to fill?
Pretty much.
Okay. We got some ideas, though.
Yeah.
We got some stuff. I'm excited about it.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get a little bit more basketball talk in. Maybe Wes Unseld does talk tomorrow, so we'll be able to get that. Obviously, more reaction to the Dame stuff. There could be a Drew Holiday trade for all we know. Like, that could be a Harden trade, too, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, the football as we get ready for the weekend, Thursday night football preview. All kinds of stuff. We got to make sure we pick the Thursday nighter. Reminder from, hey Siri, remind me in 24 hours. Oh, here we go. Come on, Siri. Now's not the time. We don't have time for this. Remind me 24 hours from now, pick Thursday night football game. Any day now.
What do you want to be reminded about?
Wow.
Pick Thursday night football game.
Okay. I added pick Thursday night football game for tomorrow, 6:52 p.m.
Excellent.
Real things.
We're not gonna be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Set into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, we got some good ones today, including one that's left over from yesterday. We didn't get this one. Jason Tatum was on Kevin Hart's show, Cold as Balls. I hope I can say that on the radio. I think I can. It's an expression. Cold, very cold in an ice tub. There. That's what the show's called now, because I don't want to get in trouble. But he brought a gift for Kevin Hart, did a very large basketball player, Jason Tatum. Oh, helps if we turn it on. That's a 5. That's a 5 or fine for me. Here's the Jason Tatum clip.
I got a surprise for you. A little gift. This is my son's jersey, but they told me it might fit. And I know how much you love the Celtics. Just try it for me, please. Come on, man. This is how I get Deuce dressed in the morning.
Hey, give me the goddamn jersey.
I knew it would fit. Look good on you, too.
It actually don't fit bad. It's like it's a 2T?
Something like that. Deuce on the back.
Yeah. Shouts out to Deuce. Thank you. I'm not going to disrespect it.
Appreciate that.
It's not a very large man, Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart is vertically challenged and
not financially.
Yeah, that too.
Not financially.
Big pockets.
Big pockets, big personality, small man. Obviously, story of the day, Dame Lillard headed not to Miami, but to Milwaukee. Jimmy Butler, your thoughts?
Yo, NBA, man. Y'all need to look into the Bucks for tampering. Y'all do. I'm just going to put that out there. Y'all didn't hear it from me, but I heard it through somebody. Y'all look at them for tampering.
Jimmy, you put it on Instagram. We absolutely heard it from you. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Miami, Tyreek Hill is trying so hard to say the word camaraderie.
Y'all ain't got that camaraderie. That what? That camaraderie. Camaraderie. Oh, camaraderie. Hey, bro, that's why I like this guy, bro. Fam. That's why I like y'all boys, bro. Appreciate that, guy.
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie.
I'm not gonna lie, camaraderie is really a hard word to say and spell.
Yeah. It is. It'd be easier if it was camaraderie.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a point. With that, we'll see you tomorrow.
Burgundy and